Hello friends, welcome back to our channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Deku passes de Mysterio's green aura instead of Quirk? So watch till end, and I request you to check out the author of this story. Name of this story is Legacies, Green Starlight by KeplerKing. All details in description. Do check out and leave kudos. Let's jump right into video. Izuku Midoriya was born into a world where 80% of people had developed superpowers known as quirks. Long ago, society had a great upheaval at the dawn of quirks. Now peace is maintained by those who fight for honor and justice. These people are known as heroes. In this world, due to the power these quirks give people, many choose to commit crimes and cause mayhem. These are villains. With the world maintaining a fragile peace through the actions of heroes, it's no wonder that the young Izuku wanted to grow up and be a hero. But luck wasn't on Izuku's side. "You should give up," the doctor said with a disinterested look while he picks his ear. The young Midoriya's face is shocked into a comedic black and white. Beside him, Izuku Midoriya uses her quirk to float his all-might action figure back into his hands. "Oh my, are you sure, doctor?" she asked with concern. This had been something she wasn't looking forward to. "Look, Mrs. Midoriya. These x-rays." The doctor shoved the papers up on a light board to showcase Izuku's foot. "They show us that Izuku has a second joint on his pinky toe. We know now that people with quirks have evolved past this trait and have only one joint." The doctor sighed and leaned back. His face had a look of annoyance as he continued his speech. "It's likely that Izuku will never develop a quirk, even one like yours or your husband's." That night, as Izuku sat watching videos of heroes win against villains, Inko had to comfort her crying son as he asked her with tears rolling down his face, "Look, Mom, heroes are cool. I can be a hero, right?" It tore her apart to imagine her son going through such a painful experience, but her worries about him prevented her from saying anything other than, "Oh, Izuku, I'm so sorry." He would sit there and cry as he tried to put on a brave face for his mother. Eventually it was time for bed and Izuku tried his best to fall asleep. His mind kept wandering back to his diagnosis, at least until he saw a bright streak of green light from his window. Dodging the All Might collection, Izuku ran to the window and saw a meteor shower as it rained through the sky. His eyes widened in wonder as he watched the lights dance across the sky, their green color filling his mind with familiarity. "My boy, you're liable to go blind if you stare so hard," a voice said from behind him. Izuku whirled around and spotted a stranger sitting on his bed. Izuku's face contorts into shock and fear before he charges at the man and punches him in the face. "GWAK. Geez. W. What the hell, kid?" the man yelled as he held the boy by his arms. As Izuku struggled a bit, he took some time to examine the man. He couldn't see his face. A shadow from the hood he was wearing blocked his view. The man was dressed rather sloppily, a long white coat with a hood. On the chest area there were what looked like medals that a veteran might have. He also wore a pair of baggy jeans and a diamond blue t-shirt. "You done freaking out? Geez, I mean you no harm." His voice, a rugged yet obviously annoyed tone, emanated from the hood. Who are you?" Izuku whispered. He knew that he needed to be quiet or this man could attack him and his mother. The man paused. His body lightly shook as he chuckled softly. "Of course you don't know. Good. I am known by many as He Who Wanders. You may call me Slash, the Silver Knight hero." Izuku's eyes narrowed. He was a hero fanboy, more so than any he ever knew. So why did he not know this Slash? Slash cleared his throat as he continued. "I've come to help, not hinder. I know what happened to you. You are quirkless without an anathema. Well, something like that. I cannot reveal my plan, but know that I am helping you." The man sat the boy back on his feet as he stood up and walked to the window. "There are things in this world you are not meant to know. If you discovered them, you'd pay the price with your sacred light. That is why I am acting now. I have seen where your path leads and I deign it necessary to interfere." Slash leans against the windowsill and looks out at the meteor shower. His mouth is barely visible in the flashing green lights. A vertical scar runs across his lips. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Slash's mouth formed a soft smile. The meteor shower. It appears once every 100 years. Legends say that it heralds great change, Others say a horrible calamity. Izuku looked at the meteor shower again. His eyes glowed in the bright lights. "It suits you, kid," Slash said as he patted the boy on the shoulder. "You were meant to be a hero, but you were cursed. Keep dreaming and hoping and holding on to that dream." Slash led the boy towards his bed and stood him in front of it before walking back towards the window. "In 10 years' time, your destiny will come for you. In that moment, the seed of interference I have planted will awaken. I cannot foresee what will happen, but know this, Midoriya Izuku. Your future will be yours to make." Slash quickly turns to face the boy, his arms outstretched and his mouth in a wide smile. "I can't wait to see you again. Now return to sleep." Slash jumped out of the window just as Izuku fell backwards onto his bed. Sleep quickly took hold as the boy was exhausted. Dreams of becoming the next greatest hero filled his mind. 10 years later, awakening at the sound of his alarm, Izuku panics and looks toward the window. He's surprised to see it shut and locked. It's been 10 years since he had that dream. It didn't matter. Izuku had homework that was due next week. Jumping out of bed, he set out to get breakfast from his mother. She had changed visibly since his childhood. Inko's stress had definitely resulted in her gaining a fair amount of weight. This, of course, mattered little to Izuku as he loved his mother dearly. After eating and getting his bag ready for school, Izuku ran out of the apartment and towards Aldera Middle School. Society was not kind to Izuku as he grew older. Any friends he had prior to his diagnosis had distanced themselves and cut him off. His once best friend, Katsuki Bakugo, had taken to bullying the poor child. His ego consuming any thoughts of mercy for Izuku, who he had taken to calling Deku now. The explosive quirk user would not only physically assault him, but would burn Izuku with his quirk. Nobody stood up to the bully, and the teachers ignored this. It remained this way until Izuku's last year in Aldera Middle School. Izuku was in class trying to write down the notes from the chalkboard as quick as he could. The teacher lazily massaged his bald head before smirking and saying, "So, I heard all of you want to go into heroics? Maybe even shoot for UA." The whole class cheered. They had all written down UA as the school they wanted to attend. One voice rose above the rest. Bakugo's, "I'm the only one who's going to UA teach. The rest of these extras won't even make it past the written portion." His yell was met with booing and annoyed laughter. The teacher smiled before asking, "What about you, Midoriya? You wrote down UA as well, didn't you?" The class went silent. You could hear a pin drop as they all stared at the embarrassed and nervous Izuku. Then, everyone erupted in laughter. "Him? No way. That guy is way too weak to be a hero. They won't let you in for just studying. What a freak man." The class booed and laughed at Izuku as he tried to shrink into a ball. A hand slammed on his desk. It was the blonde firecracker. "Fucking Deku. Listen up. I am the only one getting into UA. You're fucking useless. You can't be a hero." Those words hit Izuku hard. His once best friend had told him he wasn't going to be a hero, so Izuku just looked down and sat in silence. All right, everyone. Settle down so we can finish up the lesson." The teacher drawled, not sparing a hint of sympathy for Izuku. Class passed slower than anyone wanted, but for Izuku, all he could focus on was Bakugo staring at him, seething in rage. At the end of class, everyone had left except Izuku. At least that's what he believed. "Hey, Deku." Izuku's eyes widened at the sound of his tormentor. He froze in fear as the blonde walked up to him and snatched his hero analysis number 13 out of his hands. "Kaken, please don dash." Flumph. Bakugo slammed the book between his hands and set it alight. He tossed the burning book out the window while Izuku screamed in horror. "I know a way you can get a quirk." Izuku stopped, his eyes wide. Fear and confusion laced his brain with the inability to move. "You can take a leap of faith off the roof and hope to be reborn with a quirk in your next life. Let go, it's not food, stupid," Izuku says to the koi fish. It nibbled on his journal a bit before looking at him. Izuku looked back at the fish and wondered if that fish understood that he was in pain. It swam around in circles for a bit before it returned to staring. Izuku made a promise to come back with real fish food, but for now he needed to get home. His slow and depressed walk led him to a dark alley where a large whooshing noise was heard. As Izuku squinted down the alley, a giant wave of sludge smashed into him. Look what we have here. A perfect vessel for me to hide in. Izuku struggled in fear. The sludge villain was holding him down. Stop struggling, SHH. In 1 minute your body will be mine, and you'll fade away into a peaceful sleep. As Izuku's vision darkened, he started to look back on his life and tears flowed from his eyes. Smiles. The sludge villain was blown away by high-powered winds. Izuku landed on the ground and saw something he thought could only be a dream. All Might, don't be afraid. I am here, yelled out All Might with his signature smile. His imposing figure shadowed Izuku's face as he stood tall. However, Izuku did notice that All Might was dressed in a white t-shirt and brownish cargo pants instead of his hero outfit. Perhaps he was off duty? Are you all right, young man? Why, yes, All Might. Izuku whimpered out. Here was his favorite hero, his idol. Here was his once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. All his life, a burning question plagued him. His deepest desire. Could I be a hero? All Might quickly bottled up the sludge villain before pocketing the bottles in his cargo pants. The muscled man twitched as he saw some steam on his right hand. Hey, All Might. See, can I? Sorry, young man, I've got to be going. I signed your notebook, though. Be safe now. Izuku's eyes widened. He was about to lose his chance to get an answer. No. Izuku grabbed onto All Might's leg right before he jumped. What are you doing there? Get off. Like I could do that. Look where we are. Izuku screamed as he held on for dear life. All Might looked down before he chuckled and landed on a nearby roof. Now, young man, that was extremely reckless. You shouldn't just cling to people, especially not heroes who are working. All Might looked down at his arm. Shit, time is running out. Before you go, All Might, Izuku yelled with all his strength. The boy wanted his answer. My name is Midoriya Izuku. I'm one of your fans, and I'm quirkless. I want to know if, can I be a hero? Even without a quirk? There it was, the big question. All Might was surprised at this moment. But when he noticed the steam billowing off of him, he knew it was too late. Shit, was all he could think about before it happened. Before Izuku's eyes, All Might deflated. Wahoo! What did you do to All Might? Are you an imposter? No. I am All Might. All Might proceeded to explain to Izuku about his injury against a villain 5 years prior. He showed the boy his disgusting scar, its veiny appearance causing some discomfort in the boy. Suddenly, All Might had a serious look on his skeletal face. You asked me if you can be a hero without a quirk. My response to you is, no, I don't think you can. In Izuku's mind, he heard glass shatter at those words. His hero, the hero of heroes, told him he'd never be a hero. How painful this irony is. It's not bad to dream, kid, but you need to be realistic about it. You can be a police officer, that's a fine occupation. Izuku remained silent as All Might left the roof. His head drooped as he stared at the concrete. Eventually, he willed himself up off his knees and began to walk home. It would be quite a distance, so he needed to start now. Izuku heard it as he sadly walked home. Commotion nearby. He walked over to see it. The sludge villain? How did he? Oh no. When he grabbed All Might's leg. This is Izuku's fault. Shit. We need to wait for backup. My quirk is useless against that guy. What do I do? Izuku heard several pro-heroes talking as they stood in place, watching. Why weren't they helping? He didn't understand. Unbeknownst to him, nearby was All Might. He was also watching. But he was watching in shame. He had expended his time limit. Damn it. I wish I could help. Izuku was about to leave, but then he saw it. A tuft of blonde hair, those bright red eyes, Kaken. Small explosions were being absorbed by the sludge as Bakugo was held by the villain. The fear in his eyes. It triggered something in the green-haired boy. Hey kid, stop, come back here. Before he knew it, Izuku was running towards the danger. In an instant, he had thrown his backpack at the villain's eyes and jumped up to grab Bakugo's hand. The boy's eyes widened at seeing Izuku trying to pull him out. DEKU. What are you doing? I don't know, Kaken. My legs moved on their own. You looked like you needed help. Izuku stammered out as he continued to try and pull the other boy out. Oh, Oh my goodness. Look at you, the quirkless fanboy jumping into danger. What am I doing? All Might internalized before he went beyond his limit in a nearby alleyway. Just as the sludge villain was about to attack Izuku, he was blown away by another smash. The people cheered as All Might had saved the day. Don't be afraid. I am here. All Might yelled before he helped the kids towards the paramedics. All Might tried to keep his eyes on Izuku, but he was swarmed with reporters and fans. After getting checked by the paramedics, Izuku was scolded by the pro-heroes for being reckless. Meanwhile, Bakugo was being praised for his bravery. It didn't matter to Izuku. He already had his dream crushed. He wanted to just go home. As he walked down a street near his house, Izuku is surprised to see All Might land in front of him. "Hey, All Might, I am here to speak with dash." Pumph. All Might deflated again. He coughed out blood as he returned to his true form before addressing the boy. "Young man, Midoriya Shonen. At that time, you were the only one to act. The only one to move. Do you know what most pro-heroes say when they learned they wanted to be heroes? And no, most pro-heroes say that their bodies moved on their own. They moved to protect before they could think. That happened to you, right?" Izuku nodded, his eyes watering as he started to imagine what All Might was gonna say. "You, the quirkless fanboy, the only one to act. You, Midoriya Izuku, you can be a hero." As All Might said this, the dam broke and Izuku's tears started to flow. The boy cried and cried. This is what he wanted. To be validated by someone, to be believed in. "That is why I choose you, Midoriya Shonen. I choose you to inherit my quirk." 1 second passes. 2. Izuku looks up in a deadpan before his face breaks out into an anxious smile. "What? I choose you to be my successor." All Might blabbed as he smiled. Izuku was at a loss. He didn't know what to say. It was all so surreal. He was going to get All Might's quirk. Wow. I know this is an extremely important point on the timeline, but seriously. You need to be more careful there, Toshinori Yagi. The instant the name was said, All Might was on alert as he searched for the voice. He spotted a very suspicious man in a white coat with a hood. Wait. You. It's you from 10 years ago. Izuku yelled out, pointing at the man who lazily raised his arms. "Hello, Izuku-an. I hope you've been well." He mock saluted to the boy. Midoriya Shonen? Can you introduce me?" Izuku looked between the two men. Slash and All Might stared at each other with interest in the other's motive. The mysterious man decided that he wanted to play on an even playing field with All Might. "Fine. I guess since I did just expose your real name, you can have mine as well, Toshinori." Slash pulled his hood off to reveal a rather young-looking face. If Izuku or Toshinori was to assume, he looked about 19 or 20. His face had a large, deep scar running down his left eye. Over the eye was a black, leather eye patch. His lip was cut on the left side as well. His eyes were a deep red and his hair was a snow white. "My name is Kimisuya Yamato. I'm from Tokyo. My quirk is Essence, or the ability to manipulate atomic structures up to 100 meters away. I'm here to ensure the best possible future." "What?" replied both Toshinori and Izuku. Confusion was plainly visible on their faces, so much so that Yamato just sighed. "I suppose you mean about the whole timeline thing, right?" The man and boy nodded. It was suspicious as hell that this guy just walked up and said something about time, admitted he has a really powerful quirk, and tried to leave it at that. Yamato put a hand on his hip as he tried to balance on one foot out of boredom. "All right, I'll be honest. I'm not from Tokyo, that's just my HPSC cover. I'm from a different world altogether." Izuku's eyes widened. There was no way that's possible, right? Beside him, Toshinori looked contemplative as he considered the HPSC's confidential files list. He had access to quite a few, but there were still some even the number one couldn't touch. "I'm sure you have so many questions," the man spoke with a very bored tone. "But I'll condense my story to this. I'm older than I look, we've met before, Toshinori, and I'm here to make sure One for All doesn't get destroyed." Both listeners' eyes widened. "All Might quirk gets destroyed. Fear not. I'm here to keep the quirk alive. I believe that its destruction has vast consequences that need to be mitigated." The white-haired man walked over to the boy. Placing his hand on the boy's shoulder, he smiled. Those crimson-red eyes shone with compassion. Izuku Midoriya, will you allow me to train you with all might? Izuku froze. What was he supposed to do? What if I'm not good enough? What if I let them down? Can I even be a real hero? He felt his shoulder shake a bit. Looking up, he saw Yamato standing there. All Might just behind him, that big goofy smile on that surprisingly thin face. Hey, it's alright to be insecure. Don't let it blind you to what you can be. I already told you 10 years ago. The man took a step back and he placed his hands on his hips in a mock All Might stance, much to the ire of the real one. You, Izuku Midoriya, were meant to be a hero. So, will you accept our offer? This was all so much, so fast. Took the boy a second to process it, but he found his answer. Yes, please train me. Izuku yawned as he walked towards Takoba Beach. He had been awoken by a call from All Might demanding he meet the hero at that specific beach. Looking down at his watch, the boy read 6:30 a.m. It was definitely too early for him.
Yo, kid.
Turning around, Izuku spotted Yamato in his signature white coat. How he could wear that and not die of heat exhaustion, Izuku would never know. Despite getting caught up looking at his new mentor's questionable attire, Izuku spotted a strange girl about his age following after him. She had orangish hair that was tied up in a ponytail. Her teal eyes reflected a sense of exhaustion as she chased Yamato.
Yamato.
Gee, good morning, yelled Izuku as he waved. It seemed like Yamato was going to wave back, but he instead tripped on a crack and slammed his face into the ground, much to Izuku's horror. It took him a second to stand back up and brush himself off. He lightly chuckled as he looked around. In the time he had taken to get up, the orange-haired girl caught up to the man. Her face reflected annoyance as she crossed her arms and stared at Yamato. Kimisuya-san, my grandfather is still expecting his rent. Please tell me you have enough today. Yamato turned to look at her, and with a completely dead face said, No, I spent it all at the casino. The kids looked at this adult with disdain. Izuku definitely lost some respect for his enigmatic mentor. Yamato, however, was not fazed in the slightest. He merely sighed and promised to pay double what he owed next month. Spoiler, he owed 6 months of rent. The man sighed. Look, Kendo, I don't got much on me, but how about I help train you for UA? I heard old man Shiro say you wanted to be a hero. It was hard to take the man seriously when he acted like a fool, especially when he did that thing he did. Does he always scratch the back of his head when he's nervous? Thought Izuku with curiosity. The orange-haired girl, now known as Kendo, looked past Yamato and his blabbering. Her eyes widened upon seeing Izuku standing there all embarrassed. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't notice you there. It's all right. Yamato shook himself out of his negotiating mode and put on a wide smile. Finally, some payoff for this job, he thought before motioning between the two kids. Kendo, this is my disciple Izuku Midoriya. Izuku, this is my landlord's granddaughter, Itsuka Kendo. And nice to meet you, Kendo-san. You as well, Midoriya-san. The adult slowly started to back away towards the beach, at least until Itsuka spotted him and charged at him with a big fist karate chop. The impact didn't land right, leaving Itsuka falling backwards onto Izuku. A girl is on me. Izuku internally screamed. Whoops. Sorry, Midoriya-san, said Itsuka as she pulled the boy to his feet. Izuku just muttered out a thank you before his mind suddenly switched to analyzing the quirk he just saw. Oi, Izuku, we're gonna be late for that meeting with Toshi. Let's go, yelled Yamato as he started sprinting down the road. Itsuka started to chase him before she got winded. Damn, he runs pretty fast. Huh?
Yeah.
It was pretty awkward. Itsuka was by no means a girly girl. She had this energy to her, like what Izuku imagined a big sister would be like. Plus, his experience with women was definitely less positive than that of his peers. So, he's your mentor. Yeah. He promised to help train me for UA. Well, we met about 10 years ago, so I guess you could say I've known him for a while. Izuku lied. He knew something was causing Yamato to just run off towards the beach instead of walking with them. His eyes shot open at the realization. All Might was at the beach. He couldn't let Itsuka learn the secret of one for all. As the two continued to get closer to the beach, Itsuka pointed out a hunched-over Yamato who looked like he had ran a marathon. In front of him was Tashinori in his skeletal form. Noticing the two, Tashinori waved them both over with a smile. Young Midoriya, young Kendo, thank you for meeting us here. I'm sorry for what trouble my friend here has caused you. It's nothing, sir, Kimi-dash, Yamato harumphed. He fell backwards onto the sandy ground before giving Itsuka a deadpan stare. Just call me Yamato, please. I really hate being associated with my last name. Izuku and Tashinori shared confused looks while Itsuka just stared at the man. He didn't waver in his stare. It honestly unnerved the poor girl a bit. Any reason why? I don't remember. Let's move past that, please. The man stood up with the help of Tashinori and proceeded to stamp his feet into the ground and assume a parade rest stance. Today, we will begin your training. God willing, you'll be an even stronger hero than I was in my prime. Sorry. You were a hero, Yamato-san? Yamato feigned hurt, his hand clutching his heart in a dramatic pose. He shed comedic tears as the world turned dark. You wound me, Kendo-san. I thought we were closer than that. How deep the knife of a friend stabs. Itsuka rolled her eyes before turning to Tashinori, who had been nervously sweating. So you're the real trainer, right? Not this guy. The white-haired man faceplanted when he heard the orange-haired girl speak. Glaring from his position on the ground, Yamato chose to remain silent as Tashinori explained. Sorry, young Kendo. Both Yamato and I are training young Midoriya here. I believe he extended an offer for you to join us as well? Does that mean he has told you about his special circumstances?
No.
He's an old friend of my grandfather. I don't know how they know each other, but Yamato-san is always mooching off of that good relationship. Itsuka said while she lightly tapped her foot against Yamato's face. He pouted like a petulant child as she did so. For some reason he felt his heart start to beat faster. His nervous system was entering fight or flight. How does it feel to be under my boot, Yamato? The man rapidly shook his head. Damn it, even now he would get flashes of his past. Taking a shaky breath, the man stood back up and put on his super serious face. We're losing daylight. Kendo-san, please go inform your grandfather of my offer. If you choose to accept, meet us back here next week on Monday. Izuku looked at Yamato with concern. The laid-back man usually had a jovial tone when speaking, but now it seemed like he was forcing his own composure. Something had obviously thrown him out of whack. But what? He was shaken from his thoughts when All Might placed a hand on his shoulder. The man had a calm but solemn face as he watched Yamato send Itsuka home. It was nice to meet you, Midoriya-san. I hope we can work well together. Yelled out Itsuka as she was pushed towards her home by Yamato. Izuku stuttered out a response while blushing up a storm. Tashinori chuckled at seeing his successor experiencing the joys of youth. All right, Izuku, first things first. This is orientation for you, stated Yamato as he handed the boy a folder. The man ran his hand through his hair, moving a stray lock away from his eye patch. The patch reflected light in a way that made the sunlight appear blue. Izuku blinked and Yamato had finished fixing his hair. That is Tashinori's big plan. Aim to pass. American dream.
Jesus Christ.
You're not American, Toshi. The skeleton man simply fidgeted with his hands as he stood there. But I like America, he muttered out, much to Yamato's annoyance. The one-eyed mentor just sighed before explaining the plan to Izuku. They'd spend 10 months cleaning up Takoba Beach. Izuku would handle the arduous task with support from the older heroes should he need it. During this training, Izuku would need to change his diet and spend time meditating with Yamato. When questioned why, Yamato replied, "One for All is not only physically taxing for you, it's mentally taxing. Having a quirk that can destroy buildings and change the weather can cause you to do not only stupid things, but also to doubt your abilities." The man paused, he tapped on his wrist. There was some kind of watch there that Izuku swore wasn't before. After pressing the final button and cursing a bit, a holographic screen appeared. Both Tashinori and Izuku looked on in awe at the technology displayed before them. The last thing is something you both need to know, Yamato stated, his face taking on a troubled look. He looked down at his left hand, debating on what he would say next. Sighing, he turned back towards the concerned pair. "It's time you learn my crybaby backstory," Yamato joked, a defense mechanism. Tapping on his wrist caused it to shimmer. The light on the appendage took on a wave-like motion. After 2 seconds, the limb was replaced with something the two weren't expecting. A metallic prosthetic. It reflected a very small amount of light as the sun beamed on it. It was colored a blackish gray. The only other colors were the flashing blue of a forearm-mounted display panel. On the back of the hand was a holographic projector, the one displaying the image that originally came from the watch. There were no open spaces like you think you'd see. Instead, there were seams that ran from the wrist up to the elbow. At the elbow was a strange fusion of flesh and machine. Yamato wrapped his right hand around the connector at his elbow. Twisting and pulling the arm off revealed that the arm was connected via some kind of electromagnet. The only thing still attached to the limb was a thin wire. Yamato yanked that wire before wincing in pain. "Here, I know you're curious, kid. Go ahead and hold it." Yamato handed Izuku the arm. It was warm. The boy swore he could feel veins pumping blood and the squish of flesh in his hands. What is this? What happened to you?" Izuku stuttered before yelling the last part. Toshinori had the same thoughts behind his stoic face. "That," Yamato pointed to the arm, "is the Vargas Technologies Zero Breaker Prototype 62. VTZ-62. It is the one thing I have from my world that I have memories of. It holds everything I've ever learned or done in its logs. Unfortunately, I am unable to access those logs. Haven't been able to since 1923. Izuku froze at that. Toshinori coughed up blood in surprise at the statement. "Yamato," started Izuku. The man turned to face his student, his face showing no emotion. "Are you over 300 years old?" Yamato did not immediately answer. He looked down at his right hand. A small spark of golden energy emanated from the palm. "When I arrived in your world, I woke up in New York." Izuku stared on, wondering where this was going. "I lived on the streets for a time like most Americans did. It was the Great Depression. I didn't need to eat much, I don't sleep. So I spent my days and nights helping those who needed it. I gave up all of the money I earned at Wilshire Ironworks to feed hungry families who had nothing." All Might pulled out his phone and searched for the company. When he found that the company closed in 1938, he was shocked. "In 1941, I enlisted with the 1st Marine Division during World War II to protect someone I saw as a brother. He died 3 weeks in. I saw the horrors of war, what power does to people. I stared death in the eye and screamed into the night. You might call it irony. But I was there for the battles against the Imperial Japanese. I saw a tyrannical government toppled by our forces." Yamato clenched his fist at the word tyrannical. He had started pacing back and forth. "The things I did, those days live with me. I'll never forget it. After the war, Japan was in ruins. America had beaten them into submission. I could speak Japanese, so I asked to remain on the island. My wish was granted. In 1964, I was fully granted Japanese citizenship. I stayed to watch over a burgeoning nation, to keep the peace." Yamato had a faint smile on his face as he looked out towards the setting sun. Toshinori had adjusted his shirt due to it slipping to one side. Izuku merely stood and listened, well as best as he could while holding a literal arm. Still, he listened to Yamato's story. If not for his own curiosity, then to at least be someone who remembers him. "I tried to stay out of the public eye. The power I have, essence? I've had it for as long as I remember, which means I've had it since 1923. If a government had gotten a hold on me, well, our world could have been a lot different." "Wait," said Izuku. "What is essence anyway?" Yamato smiled and patted the boy on the head. He gestured for Toshinori and Izuku to take a seat. The two looked around as there was no clear seating options. Yamato just sighed, walked over to a tipped-over fridge, and kicked it towards them. A trail in the sand was left behind, but the fridge slid to a stop right behind them. The two sat down, both with looks of confusion. "Essence is a blessing and a curse," Yamato started. "When you think of a quirk, you think something that your body naturally is accustomed to, right?" The two listeners nodded. It was obvious that most quirks caused mutations in the body to allow for its use in a safe manner. Well, my quirk is different. It changes atoms. I could literally disassemble that fridge you're sitting on with a snap. The two looked horrified and wondered if they should stand up. Alas, my quirk has a drawback. Like all quirks, essence consumes my brain tissue if I go overboard. I go plus ultra? I say bye-bye to life. Izuku's eyes widened in shock. His quirk would kill him if he used it too much. Toshinori had similar thoughts but instead related it to One for All and how the power of that quirk would kill people who couldn't handle its full power. That was the case. Izuku and All Might looked up at him. Until I used essence to rewrite my biology. I changed my cells to reproduce at a rate that counteracted the effects. Now I just lose memories instead of potentially dying. Yamato shrugged his shoulders as he continued. Before you ask, I can't delete quirks. Unfortunately, essence doesn't allow the deletion of things. Only the alteration. I can change a quirk to function differently, such as changing its activation method. But only once. The body is quick to recognize my interference and prevent essence from changing things again. A one-and-done deal. 1 second passes. 2. Wait-a-what? The two shouted simultaneously, causing Yamato to cover his ears. Why? You can alter quirks? Yes. Yamato replied, his face deadpan. Izuku's face was one of wonder. Imagine the uses for such a quirk. Mutations could be altered into something that fits a person's desired outcome. Quirk drawbacks could be overcome. Wait. People without quirks could develop quirks. The boy's thoughts raged like an inferno as his mumbling began. Toshinori just looked on in shock as he tried to process the unfathomable revelation he just received. An exasperated Yamato yawned before continuing. Back to my story. Things were good until the early 21st century. Specifically, 2034. Izuku stopped mumbling. Toshinori closed his gaped mouth. The dawn of quirks. Yep. The advent of human evolution created some of the worst crisis cases I've ever seen. It all culminated in one event that I call the nexus point. Do you know what it is, All Might? Yamato nodded to the man. Toshinori's eyes widened at the motion. All for one, and the creation of One for All. Yeah, for all the years I've lived, there was never a worse villain to appear. He manipulated the chaos to suit his needs. Kids with quirks would surrender their powers to him to rejoin the quirkless masses. I saw all of it from the rebellion. In 2056, a raid on All for One's lair was conducted by a special operations unit. My comrades, Kudo and Bruce, led the charge. I got lost in the lair. I found him, the first wielder. He was on the verge of death, so I used what little power I could at the time and fused something within him. Toshinori coughed. He was judging whether or not to believe the story, but it was all so accurate to what Nana had told him so long ago. It wasn't all me. The boy who held the powers, his will is what completed the conversion. I don't remember much of what happened up until 2173. My memories had been lost. I ended up serving the Meta Liberation Army. So you were a radical terrorist? Questioned Toshinori. Izuku kind of shrunk back away from Yamato. The man simply sighed, kicking a can that was near him. Back then it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, Toshinori. Without my memories I had been told many lies. It was only thanks to your sensei that I found myself again. Yamato walked over to where Izuku was. He waved his hand over the metallic arm and the projector displayed an image. Yamato was smiling. His eye had a dark circle under it. His arms were around two people's shoulders. One man with a yellow cape and white suit. Toshinori shivered upon seeing him, and a woman with black hair tied up in a ponytail. Nana Shimura saved me, so I did her a favor. Tapping the image once again, a video started to play. Log TZ 4223. Rain poured down as Yamato stumbled towards an alleyway. He had just dealt with a villain who had kicked his ass. He would kill for a hotel or something. But those kids needed the money more. His hood barely kept the rain off his head as he found the makeshift living zone he had made for himself. Anything to keep the HPSC off his scent. He would have crawled into his dirty mattress had he not seen the crying kid. Hey, what's wrong? The kid looked up at the man. He had a stubble that had definitely not been maintained in a while. His hood covered his eyes, but the soft smile provided a degree of comfort. I'm my mom. Yamato knew what had happened. He was just there. A villain had orphaned another child. Another soul to be damned by this endless back and forth. This was his fault. Fuck. Hey, it's all right, bud. Look, let me take you to a person who will help you. Trust me, I'm here to help. Yamato comforted the boy with soft words. Taking his hand, he pulled the kid down the street. He had taken his coat off and wrapped it around the kid to keep him warm. They walked for a while before arriving at a house on the outskirts of the city. Knocking at the door, Yamato made sure to place the kid under the overhang, near the door. When the door opened, light shone out, and Nana Shimura gasped in surprise at the sight. Nana! Yamato sighed. He gestured to the kid. I'm calling in my favor. Look after him for a while. The woman nodded before guiding the boy into the door. Before you go, kid, Yamato said while putting his coat back on, flipping the hood up. In the future, you'll be someone who inspires hope in others. So smile. Show the world you're not afraid. Stand proud and say, I am here. Yamato patted his head before leaving. To say that Toshinori was shocked was an understatement. His whole life he had tried to hunt down the guy who saved him. Here he was, not a day older than he last saw him. Don't say thank you. Remember, it wasn't me who made you into the man you are, All Might. It was Nana and yourself. Yamato stated before Toshinori could open his mouth. Yamato took his arm from Izuku and reattached it to the connection. A hermetic seal hissed as the arm regained motion in the fingers. The limb shimmered before it camouflaged again. The man it was attached to sighed. It's getting late. I've got one thing to do before I head home. Yamato reached into his coat and pulled out 2 vials. One held a green liquid that glowed a small amount. The other held a fierce golden liquid that swirled in the vial. Yamato held up a hand as he walked over to them. Don't. These are nanomachines. The gold vial is for you, Izuku. The green is for Toshinori. These'll allow you to contact me anywhere on Earth at any time. Toshinori? He gestured for the man to hold out his arm. When he did, the cold sting of a needle pierced his forearm and he hissed. It'll take a bit. But those are medical grade. Wait, yeah. It'll extend your time limit by about 2 hours. 3 if you push yourself. It's not a cure-all. So don't go trying to kill yourself, all right? Toshinori nodded as he looked down at his arm in wonder. Izuku was next. He was definitely a little frightened by the liquid that seemed to thrash in the vial. Doing the same as Toshinori, Izuku allowed Yamato to inject the liquid into his arm. It was uncomfortable, but then all shots were. Yours has a special effect. The person who told me to change your timeline told me to give you this. He tapped the now empty vial. I have no idea what it does, but I know it's not bad. Yamato placed the empty vials back in his coat and stretched. Get some sleep tonight. We'll talk again tomorrow and finally start your training, kid. Yamato threw some fake jabs Izuku's way and laughed a bit before walking off towards his rented apartment. Young Midoriya, I know this was a lot to take in, but I believe you will benefit from training under us both. I hope to see you back here tomorrow morning. Yes, All Might. The two said their goodbyes and Izuku began his trek home. He was definitely excited for tomorrow. Tonight, however, was time for rest. New York City, 10:06 a.m. In a building near the center of the city on the 50th floor, sat Richard Novak. A 37-year-old quirkless man who had just been denied a promotion in favor of someone with an intelligence quirk. Looking down at his desk, he saw the picture of his wife and daughter. He thought he was lucky when he married her. He sighed and rolled his desk chair over towards the window and looked out at the city. It was a normal day of the same old, same old. The hustle and bustle depressed him. After all, he grew up in the country. Turning back to his desk, he was instead met with nothing. Looking around, he was completely surrounded by darkness. Below, above, left, right. Everywhere was just endless void. Richard Novak, age 37, wife and kid. Hates the quirk society he was born into. Hello. My name is Yutaro. We haven't met before now. Richard rapidly looked around, trying to find the voice. It was a fruitless endeavor as it seemed to come from all around him. "Be not afraid, human. I come bearing gifts." "Who are you?" Richard whimpered out. He knew he was stuck. There was no way he was getting out of this. "We are the endless, the infinite, the eternal. That which came before the first spark of creation. But I assume you meant this specific conscious. It does not matter. I am here to offer you the deal of a lifetime." The voice responded in tones of mirth and malice. It confused Richard as he tried to ascertain if he was threatened or comforted. "What deal?" The voice laughed uproariously. It had obviously gotten some kind of kick out of making this grown man squirm. "I will give you your heart's desire, freedom, and to be with your family. In return, I only require your body for a short time." Richard paused as he considered the offer. It was tempting. He'd hated his job, his life. The only thing he had was his family. "What's the catch?" "Your body will be taken over completely. You will not control your actions. Your mind will be awake, but you are not driving this vehicle. When we are done, you shall be taken to a paradise. One free of quirks, of prejudice and hatred." He knew this was a trap. Something was wrong. But a paradise for his wife? Their daughter? That was something he desperately wanted for them. "Okay. You've got a deal. Excellent. Don't mind the agony." Wadash. White-hot pain. Searing, sizzling, bone-crunching pain. Richard wanted to scream as his body was taken over, but his mouth would not open. His veins bulged with a black substance and his skin darkened to a gray tone. His irises turned a deep purple and the sclera a black color. 1 second after the pain, he opened his eyes to his office again. His body moved without his command. He faced the window and was horrified to see what he had become. "It's been so long since I wore human. I'm happy it's come back into fashion," Richard said. "Wait." No, he didn't. The man's face curled into a smile. It was sinister, as the eyes glowed for a second. He looked down at his gray hands. Those veins were disgusting. "Well, Richard, I must thank you for taking such good care of yourself. Now, it's time you help me. I'm looking for someone you see." Turning back to the computer, Richard began to type and search the web. It was obvious he had grown frustrated and just slammed his hand on the keyboard, breaking the desk in half. A knock at the door startled Richard, but he hid it well. "Mr. Novak, Erica from accounting sent over some 401k forms that corporate needs you to sign." "Thank you, Mark. Leave them in my inbox. I'm heading out for a bit." Richard grabbed his coat from his chair. It took him a while to stop stumbling in his new body, but eventually he began to walk like normal towards the elevator. Arriving on the first floor, Richard wandered out onto the New York streets. "Ah!" The being sighed after breathing deeply. "Earth, it's been too long. Now, where are you, little brother? You thought you could just run and they'd be safe? How ignorant." "Shut up, you disgusting thing." Yamato stood before a hulking creature. It was humanoid in shape, but its body had become more muscle than man at this point. It held a large broadsword in its gray-skinned hands. Yamato was covered in bruises. Blood seeped from his eye and nose. It was obvious that a battle had taken place. Bodies lay around them in piles. "I won't dash," Yamato starts before coughing violently. "I won't let you hurt them. Look at you, you're dying. Fine, call it. One final bout, and I'll finally be rid of you." The creature gestured for Yamato to call whatever he was going to call. Yamato stumbled back onto the heels of his feet. Reaching out his hands, a bright light shined. Eventually it formed into a long but curved shape. "Heed my call, Nagaraboshi," Yamato yelled before drawing what looked to be a katana from the glowing space. It was carved with ornate runes that glowed. A violent golden spark ran up the blade before jumping off the weapon. The two lowered into a combat stance. Yamato needed to end this quickly. He began to think of all the ways he could end this in one strike, at least until the searing pain hit. Looking down, he saw his left forearm lying on the ground. Blood spurted from the stump, pupils dilated, heart rate skyrocketing, goosebumps, fear, so potent. "Alas, I have no need for it. Find me again when you're stronger." The creature shook its head. Yamato Kimisuya, you are the weakest of the seven. Yamato fell forward, his vision growing dark, his body growing cold. Was he gonna die here? Mizudafu, Japan, 1:23 a.m. Yamato opened his eye. He was laying in his bed, well, more like his grimy mattress. Despite having enough money to purchase a rail bed, the man just decided to use a mattress on the floor. Even with him laying in bed with his eye closed, he wasn't sleeping. Sleep would forever elude him. No, instead all he could do was sit there and try to let his fractured brain piece together whatever bad memories it could come up with. This one was particularly hard on him. It was hard to forget his failures, especially when it cost him his memories and arm. Sighing loudly, Yamato decided to play the lazy game today and just roll onto the floor. Instead of walking, the man rolled towards the bathroom with determination. He had this daily ritual of self-loathing before leaving the sad apartment. Standing up, he looked into the mirror and saw his disheveled face. He glared at the failure of a hero before turning to grab his toothbrush. You'd think immortality would cover cavities? Life finds a way, I guess, he muttered as he placed a strip of paste on the brush. He brushed to the point his gums bled a bit. Spitting out what was left over, he began his tedious tasks. First, he needed to eat something. Years of being forced to eat had made his body develop the natural urge for food again. He wasn't a five-star chef, but Yamato did know how to make a mean cup of ramen. Pouring hot water into the cup, he let it sit as he walked over to a small metallic table. Flicking on a desk lamp, the man looked down at the VTZ-62. The display panel was open and inside the circuits crackled with high-powered energy. Sticking his finger in, Yamato felt a jolt of the electricity. Damn thing, how the hell am I supposed to access those logs if you won't even let me fix you? You will not. Directive 6 of Dr. Vargas' treatment plan states you are locked from learning about your full history until your treatment is concluded. Yamato sighed as he touched the display. The arm began to project a humanoid hologram. It had no outwardly noticeable features, but it seemed to be a copy of himself. Please tell Javier that I'd like to remember more than when he burned you onto my arm and his name, the man stated to the AI. Oh, how he loathed AIs. They always took him so literally, even to the point that one tried to kill him because he said, "Shoot me now." Negative. Dr. Vargas is unable to be contacted in this universe. Please remind yourself that all outward communications are impossible to deliver. You dumb monkey. His eye twitched at that. Who was this piece of junk calling a dumb monkey? Oh, he swore the next time he saw Vargas, he was going to make him erase this AI. Yamato sighed before grabbing the prosthetic and connecting it to his body. A heads-up display ran over his cornea before disappearing. Advanced technology with SAS. Damn you, Vargas. It was about 5 minutes before Yamato sat down to eat. His blue t-shirt had taken the brunt of the miso. Sadly, it was Yamato's undying determination to keep the shirt that led it to not be thrown out. No, instead he lived in filth until he could find enough money to get it washed. At 2:33, our brave hero had decided to start his workout. 300 push-ups, 600 sit-ups, and a small window of boxing. The first two were easy enough to accomplish. The boxing portion required him to ask Old Man Shiro for a training dummy. Not worth the effort. Besides, it might be better to have Izuku spar with him a few days out of the week. Instead of boxing, the man just wandered over to a cabinet and grabbed whatever liquor bottle he could find. A glass of Jack Daniels, why not? 3:45 saw Yamato 9 glasses deep into his drinking. Damn the HPSC. Their stupid cover story for him had labeled him an alcoholic. It would have been nice had his body been able to get drunk in the first place. Essence had taken its toll. One of those tolls was the inability to absorb alcohol. A shame, really. It was time to start heading for the beach. Today was the first day of training. He wanted to at least get some meditation in before those kids and that doofus arrived. Grabbing his coat, the hero set off into the dark morning. Izuku woke up at 5:30 on the dot. His excitement was overwhelming. Today began the first day of the rest of his life. He had showered, gotten dressed, and grabbed a quick breakfast before running to the door. He froze at the entrance. What if his mother woke up and he was just missing? No, instead he wrote a note explaining that he had gone out to exercise. He had a distance to run, but that was all part of his plan. He started running to the beach, his willpower overriding the screaming of his legs. He was dressed in some shorts and a shirt that read dress shirt. Ironic. He arrived at Takoba Beach at 5:59. A minute later and he would have been exactly on time. Young Midoriya, I am so glad you made it. Young Kendo arrived about 2 minutes before you. All Might shouted from his position atop a pile of trash. Nearby Yamato lazily waved. In his hand he held an apple. Izuku watched as the man focused on the apple. His eye turned gold and a spark of golden energy flowed into the apple. Try this, kid. Yamato yelled before tossing the apple to Izuku. The boy barely caught it, much to the amusement of the 3 onlookers, and took a bite. His eyes widened as he tasted it. This wasn't an apple's flavor. It was grape soda, right? I was up trying to study it. Dimethylantranolate is kind of hard to synthesize on my own. So, thank you, Yamato. The man was begging for a thank you. Looking past him, Izuku saw a crate of apples. He blanched at the thought of needing to eat all those apples. Good morning, Midoriya-san, said a cheerfully tired Itsuka. Izuku blushed and stammered out a response. Is this the stuff normal kids did? Talk to girls and not get tricked into being a bag carrier or something? Itsuka tilted her head before flashing a cute smile. Yamato nodded his head sagely. This is adorable. I'm totally not gonna let this slide. The future depends on it, he declared in his head. All Might just looked on in vague confusion. All right, you twerps. It's time to begin training. Kendo, I know you're a martial artist, but even you athletes need to work on power and stamina. You'll begin by running the entire length of the beach and back. Yamato screamed before returning to a calmer voice. That's not so hard. 6 times. Stay hydrated. He finished and threw a water bottle at her. She missed it, and Izuku lightly snorted. Itsuka sighed before she took off running down the beach. Oh, but when Yamato turned to face Izuku, those crimson eyes held a sadistic glee behind them. Izuku, because you want to be a hero? And your first mission is to clean this beach. You will clean 30 feet in that direction, and that direction. He pointed east and west. You will not leave until it's done. Got it. Yes, sensei. Yamato clapped his hands and the boy ran off. The mentor smiled an evil smile. It would take him more than all day to finish that task. But if he asked a certain redhead for help, it would be done in a few hours. I'm glad you're not a villain, Yamato. Me too, Toshi. Me too. Yamato walked back over to a spot he picked out in the morning. He sat down in his lotus position and began to meditate, leaving All Might to supervise the kids. Looking over at Izuku, he saw the boy carrying large portions of garbage towards the spot they had pointed out for him to dump it at. Sweat poured down the boy's back as he lugged things that were twice his weight. The sun beamed down on them, making it infinitely worse. Itsuka, however, had just returned from her 3rd lap. She saw the boy struggling. Something about it was inspiring. She guessed it was his face. That look of determination as he struggled against overwhelming odds. She felt the big sister in her yelling to help him. So she ran over and stopped him from crushing himself under the weight. Please let me help you, Midoriya. You're gonna get hurt like this, the girl said with concern. Her face was pretty close to Izuku's, causing the boy to blush and stutter up a storm. The girl lightly chuckled as she watched the boy grow more flustered. Something in her told her that she should tease the green-haired kid a little bit. My. What are you so embarrassed about, Midoriya? She teased with a little grin. Why, Izuku mutters out his response. Suka blinked. What did he say? She leaned in and told him to say it again. He sighed and whispered, I'm not used to having cute girls near me. It was Itsuka's turn to blush up a storm. She was accustomed to guys treating her like a sister. It wasn't something she really cared about. Here was this shy kid calling her cute. Hey, this isn't date camp. It's training. Get to work or I'll rearrange your molecules, yelled Yamato. Zo Eldug. When he looked over to his mentor, he had his eye closed. How had he seen them? It didn't matter. Izuku returned to his work. Itsuka remained close by, helping the boy to move whatever trash she could. It helped that Big Fist was useful for carrying a large amount. What didn't help was that Izuku would often stop and stare at Itsuka's hands. He would go into a mumbling tangent before having a rock thrown at him by one of the pro-heroes. Several hours later, the two teens sat with their backs to each other. They were exhausted after the immense amount of garbage they had hauled away. Izuku thought he was about to fall over and die before a cold object touched his neck. "EP," Izuku squealed. Looking up, they saw Yamato standing there holding two ice-cold drinks. He had a teasing smirk on his face as the teens yanked the bottles from him and offered a quiet thanks. "Well, look at that. You did it. Congrats, kids." The man pointed out towards the area they had cleaned. A huge space of about 90 feet had been cleared. Pearl-white sand glistened in the light of the setting sun. They even noticed a crab scurrying along the newly reclaimed space. Before the age of quirks, Yamato began. Heroes were not people who fought villains. All Might walked up next to him and patted him on the shoulder, much to Yamato's anger. No, heroes were people who served the community. Today, you have taken the first step on your path towards your future as heroes. The white-haired man sighed and pushed All Might away. "Izuku, it's time to start your meditation practice. We'll use the spot you just cleared. You can stay and watch if you want kendo, but you need to stay quiet." The girl smiled and nodded. Toshinori, meanwhile, had gone back to his truck and tried out those little machines Yamato gave him. "I'll be taking the garbage to the dump. Think you can handle it, Yamato? Shut up and go. Don't make me kick your ass, number one." All Might laughed as he drove off. He'd kill to see that scrawny man try. Back with Izuku, he was seated across from Yamato. They were both in the lotus position. Izuku found it straining on his knees. "Stop fidgeting. Just ease into it. Meditation requires a great deal of patience. You can't just go plus ultra and become a master." Izuku nodded. He took a deep breath and tried to ignore the feeling in his legs. Yamato smiled and gave a quick look over to Itsuka. He chuckled when he saw the girl's gaze mostly focused on Izuku. "Close your eyes and breathe in. Exhale at the top of the breath and repeat." Yamato told him, "While you do this, reflect on the things you have done. What have you accomplished? What are your failures? When you have the answer, internalize it." The boy followed his commands, trying his best to imagine the things he needed to. Thoughts of his past flowed into him. Feelings of disappointment, anger, loneliness. All of those things were realized and internalized. He was Izuku Midoriya, and he wanted to be a hero. Nothing would change that. For Yamato, it was hell. Voices screamed out at him, demanding him dead. Faces of people long dead filled his mind. He shoved it deep inside. After all, he didn't know these people. The faces had no place in his memory. The places, voices, none of them matched anything he knew. The man opened his eye and tried to calm himself down. His vision was filled with a medical diagnostic screen. His heart rate had hit 134. His blood pressure was too high and his adrenaline level had been tripled. Deep breaths and calming mantras, that was what he focused on. Itsuka was oblivious to this little incident as she watched the green-haired kid. His serene face made her heart skip a beat. "He's cute when he's sitting like that." She froze. Her face had rapidly engaged tomato mode. "No way. I can't believe I just thought that. Arg. Get a hold of yourself, Itsuka. All right. Enough meditating for today." Yamato yelled as he shot up, startling Izuku. "Kendo, go ahead and head back home. I have to take Izuku to his house." The two teens looked between themselves and nodded. "By Midoriya-san. I can't wait to get back to it tomorrow." Izuku nodded and flashed that brilliant smile of his. "See you tomorrow, Kendo-san." Yamato rolled his eye and grabbed the boy's arm, pulling him towards the kid's apartment. Eventually, the two settled into a comfortable walk. Izuku looked over to see Yamato wrapping a red scarf around his neck. It ended up blocking his mouth and nose. Noticing the curious look, Yamato stated, "I can't be seen by your mother. It's too early on the timeline. Plus, I think I look cool." Izuku's face went deadpan at his mention of cool. In his opinion, the man looked like he was caked in dirt and had crawled out of a pre-Quirk battleground. If he was cool, Izuku was the definition of a superstar. "What do you mean it's too early? Certain events, like that day I appeared in your room 10 years ago, must happen at exact times. If we go off of what was predicted, your future can dramatically shift," Yamato calmly stated. He kept walking despite Izuku's confusion. The man turned and walked backwards, his eye trained on Izuku. He spread his arms out and did a little spin. "I look amazing," Izuku chuckled. It was going to be an awkward first meeting between this guy and his mother. New York City, 6:21 a.m. Yutaro was frustrated. This body was definitely not worth its weight in blood. "Damn you, Richard, you disgusting human." The corrupted autarch had dealt with many different species bodies. The Arcturians, Morlians, human, Draconis, each one had its benefits and weaknesses. This body was weak. Its owner had no powers, at least not the ones Yutaro had hoped for. "Damn, you did have an anathema. A shame it was immunity. I swear, having a good immune system is just worthless." The puppet body shook its head. The streets were swamped with early morning traffic, as always. This was good, it wouldn't take long to pick out a new body.
Azrael, mater di Yutaro, come fort.
"You will assume this body when I claim a new one." A shadow-like form grew from the ground. It had a singular eye that blinked before imitating a nod. It sunk back into the ground where the body's shadow was. Yutaro's eyes scoured the passing populace. They didn't stop moving until they locked onto a male sitting on a bench, his head in his hands. Using his power, Yutaro ripped his way into the man's mind. "Damn heroes, they couldn't even protect my wife. Now we're hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. What are we supposed to do? It seems that our friend there is experiencing a troublesome time. Perhaps we should assist him." A cacophony of voices blared in Yutaro's mind. Yells of approval, discussions from outside of this world. But one stood out from the others in a way that silenced them. "My offspring, go forth and bring this being to paradise. May his form suit your hunt of the rebel." "My thanks, Lord Commander." Yutaro tapped a little happy jig before walking over and sitting beside the man. Despite his past self's reluctance to perform these acts, the man he was now rather enjoyed it. "You seem tired. Haruto Miyazaki." Who are you? How do you know my name?" Yutaro sighed. These primitive animals lacked the connection with the source. Once the rebel was dealt with, he would lead this world into the paradise that is the source. "I know of your struggles. I may be able to help. Perhaps you would like money? Your wife healed? Would you perhaps like to live in a paradise with her?" Haruto froze. He was listening as the man next to him offered solutions to his problems. But it was all so confusing. Why did he find himself believing this guy could fix everything? "If I did accept, what would I have to pay?" "Nothing of importance. See, I have an Quirk. It allows me to use someone's body as a vessel. I need to obtain permission or there's a chance my host could reject me." He wasn't lying per se, more like he had to bend the truth. Damn the creator of these heathens, bestowing the anathema upon them, blocking the rightful rulers from accessing their gifts. "I just need to borrow your body for a small while, and then your reward will be paid in full. Sound fair?" Yutaro watched as the businessman contemplated his offer. He rolled his eyes. These apes always take forever to answer. Why the debate? Paradise was only a switch away. "I agree. If you agree to heal my wife, Mr. Miyazaki, it'll be my pleasure to help her. Please, follow me to this alley. It's not a pretty transference." The two men stood up. Yutaro led the way to a disgustingly dirty alley. The man looked around before turning to see Yutaro staring at him. "Shake my hand and say these words. I, Haruto Miyazaki, willingly depart my person. For unto me shall a paradise open, ad eterna invictus." Haruto felt his heart beat accelerating. Something was wrong, he could feel it. A dark miasma descended upon the alley. All exits were obscured hesitantly. He placed his hand in the other man's. "I, Haruto Miyazaki, willingly depart my person. For unto me shall a paradise open, ad eterna invictus." As soon as the last word left his mouth, Richard Novak fell limp backwards. Haruto opened his mouth to ask what happened but found he couldn't. His arms stayed locked at his side. His legs stung but could not move. What was happening? Azrael assumed the body. "It's high time we started building our new headquarters in this world." Richard slowly stood up, his head cracked and snapped. The eyes slowly changed from a purple iris to a white iris. "My lord, It is a privilege to receive a vessel of which you have inhabited. I would never leave my prized general in this world's disgusting excuse for the beyond. Seriously, to think these primitives haven't even constructed the first Oblivion drive yet. Azrael looked disgusted. He spat on the ground as an insult. Surely they mock us, these protected humans. To think, the cockroaches were spared the collapse while we Arcturians had been subsumed by the Emperor. Pitiful, quite. Now, Azrael, I have given you command of our forces. Go forth and find new allies. Bring more of our enemies unto our paradise and bring forth our era of peace. Azrael bowed. The man simply walked away, towards the busy streets. However, Yutaro felt a buzz in his pocket. Pulling out a primitive communication device, he opened it and answered the call. Haruto Miyazaki. You may or may not know me. My name is All for One. I have your wife, she is safe. You owe us a great deal. Please board flight 214 tomorrow at noon and report to me in Japan. You will pay your debt through work. Is this understood? Yutaro paused, his lips pursed. Then he smiled a wicked smile. Allies, of course, perhaps I could bring along some allies? They will assist with whatever I tell them. You may. Do not be late, for her sake. The call ended. Yutaro shook as he clutched the phone. His face was ear to ear with a smile. His mouth opened and out came a deranged laugh. He was excited to meet this, All for One. Mizudafu, Japan, 7:59 p.m. Yamato and Izuku stood just outside the apartment. The adult beside him was sweating. Izuku swore. It was almost like he was either dreading this or he was just really antisocial. Mom! Tadaima! I have a guest. It's my workout coach, Izuku said as he opened the door. There, standing near the kitchen, was the short woman. Izuku Midoriya smiled at her son and happily greeted the man standing in the doorway. Warning! Accelerated heart rate detected. Administer beta blockers. Yamato felt his heart spike. Seeing the pop-up, he shook his head both to clear the pop-up and to remove his shock. Thank you for having me, Mrs. Midoriya. Oh, and thank you for allowing me to train Izuku. Yamato bowed, his words slightly muffled by the scarf. Please have a seat. I'm sure you must be hungry. Oh, I must apologize, ma'am. My quirk has some properties that decrease my appetite. Please forgive my rudeness. Oh, not at all. Izuku watched as the two went back and forth. He smiled. It seemed like his mentor and mother were going to get along well. Maybe he could introduce her to Elno. That would probably make her heart explode. Izuku and Inko sat down at the table and started to eat. Yamato merely sat beside Izuku and offered small amounts of conversation. So, he slipped on a can and fell on his butt. I swear I saw Itsuka bust up laughing. Yamato chuckled as he spoke. When he looked over at Izuku, he saw the boy giving him a pout. And he began to laugh harder. Oh, my baby boy is talking to girls?
Yeah, Itsuka Kendo.
She's my landlord's granddaughter. I swear. Her karate chops have taken years off my life. Yamato laughed out. Izuku looked betrayed as Yamato just flashed him a wink. At least he thought it was a wink. You know, is it a wink if he's only got one eye? Yes, it was a wink. Izuku froze. He stuttered a bit before looking down in embarrassment. He just went back to eating while Yamato and Inko discussed things like his training and current housing prices. When Izuku looked up from his food, he noticed that it was time for bed. At least according to the American Dream plan. He needed to be well rested since tomorrow was the day Yamato would be sparring with him. Good night, Mom. Good night, Yamato. Hey! Get some good sleep, kid. Yamato waved at him. As soon as the bedroom door closed, Yamato felt uncomfortable. Something was off. He looked over to Inko, who had been slowly chewing her food with her eyes closed. The man didn't know what to say now that he didn't have Izuku as an out. He slowly tried to stand up. However, the woman just opened her eyes and stared at him. Take the scarf off, Hisashi, she said with a glare. Oh shit. Oh shit. Shit. Yamato sighed. He reached up and pulled the red scarf off. His face looked tired. Slightly scared but mostly tired. Hey, Inko. Don't you hey Inko me. You told me you were working overseas 10 years ago. Why is your hair white? What's with the eye patch? Yamato flinched with every whisper yell. Yeah, this was gonna be a rough one. At least Izuku didn't know. God, it was going to be so much worse with him. The man sighed. I did work overseas 10 years ago. Back then, I did it for your own protection. It was too dangerous for me to be around you and Izu. Why? Yamato rubbed his hair, trying to massage a headache that was forming. All right. Remember how I said my cousin was the pro hero / the Silver Knight? Inko nodded. That was me. I'm / the Silver Knight. Yes, I can breath fire with my quirk. No, my quirk is not fire breath. Inko just stood there with her arms crossed. It broke his heart to have to lie to her all these years, and yet it hurt even more to see her like this. Look, you can't tell Izu. Right now, I'm helping him train for UA dash. What? Shush, it's his decision. You need to support it. Trust me. Yamato paused before he nodded and continued. This is a rare calm moment. He needs to focus on his heroics. He doesn't need the drama of me reappearing in his life right now. Not when he has you. Yamato faltered a bit. His tired face took on a sad look. He shook slightly. In Inko's eyes, he resembled a young Izuku who was about to cry. Things happened. The HPSC has it all marked confidential. But I never stopped thinking about you too. Hisashi. Inko uncrossed her arms and took a shaky step forward. I understand if you want me to. He was cut off when he felt the warmth of two arms around him. Looking down, he saw the slightly shorter woman holding on for dear life. Don't. Just. Please. If he had been anyone else, this would have been strange. Yamato, however, hugged her back. It had been a long, long time since he saw her. Welcome home. Hisashi. I'm home, Inko. Izuku looked around. It was dark. Really dark. He tried to open his mouth, but it felt like no air escaped it. He thought he was dead until a flash of bright light shook his vision. Fellow Arcturians, today marks the 1 millionth year since the founding of our great society. My name is Emperor Takuya. Of House Dash, an explosion rocked the vision. People screamed and shouted as a huge building came falling down. Parents huddled over their children and siblings hugged as the shadow grew darker over them. Izuku thought this was the end, until a figure swooped in and sliced the whole building in two. He was tall, with black hair and a short but rugged beard. His face was marked with a smug smile and golden eyes. Izuku blinked twice before confirming that this guy had pointed ears. He wore a black coat with a strange insignia. Over that was a red cape with the words, Invictus Mori. From what Izuku remembered about Latin, mostly from his search on Latin heroes, that meant to die unconquered. Be not afraid. The hero Braveheart is here. Izuku watched as the man landed on the ground. He had propelled himself in the air using some kind of rocket boots. The boy felt so excited to see this otherworldly hero do something amazing. Is everyone all right? I'm glad I got here just in time. Everyone clapped and cheered. The man took a bow as he took in the praise. He signed a few signatures before walking off. He didn't notice the small boy following him. Izuku watched as this blue-haired boy with a small poster chased after him. Mr. Braveheart, I have a question. Well, let me hear it, boy. The boy nervously shifted. He showed the man his poster. It was a crude drawing of himself and the boy standing side by side as comrades. Izuku felt his face light up with a smile at the small fanboy. I know most people dislike us. Izuku noted that this kid was using some advanced grammar for a child. But I wanted to know if you thought a hybrid could be a hero like you? In an instant, the entire plaza was quiet. Izuku rapidly turned his head back and saw that the people had all turned to stare at the boy and the hero. By the time he turned back, he was appalled to see the hero rip the poster up. The boy screamed as the hero then lit his hand ablaze. Disgusting. His face was full of hatred. The snarled lip, the flared nostrils. The boy backed away in fear. What did he do that deserved that? Begone, you omen of the damned, before you cause another building to collapse. The boy took a shaky step back. His eyes started to leak tears. It was only a second before he turned and ran down the street. Izuku had heard enough. His face contorted in rage as he willed his body to punch the man. Except that didn't happen. Instead, you. It has been so long. What say you of this society's heroes? Izuku was surprised to see an elderly man standing beneath a cherry tree. Looking down, he saw his own body. What is this? This is the mindscape. What I just shared with you was a memory of my childhood. My homeworld, Premies, the second planet to orbit the star Celeste. On my world, I was viewed as an outcast. Something to be hated. Izuku watched as the old man sat beneath the cherry tree. He patted the ground next to him. Izuku sat down. It was peaceful here. Who are you? The elder sighed. His tired features contorted into a happy smile. I am the hybrid prince, a mixture of Arcturian and human blood. My father, the emperor of Premies, had me thrown out when he discovered my birth. I am the last of my people. Izuku froze. What? An entire advanced civilization had been wiped out. How? How are you the only one left? I saw so many people there. It was the dash. Muzutafu, Japan, 5:30 a.m. The alarm clock woke Izuku up with a start. He tried to remember what he was dreaming about. Something about old men and heroes, he guessed. Whatever, he needed to eat something. It was a surprise to see his mother up this early. She seemed to be singing a happy little tune while making some eggs. She turned and saw Izuku. Good morning, Izu. I've got to do some errands today, so I thought I'd get up early and make you some food. Thanks, Mom, the boy eagerly said as he sat down. The woman placed the plates on the table and she started to eat. The two conversed a small amount. Izuku expressing his gratitude for his mother and Inko nearly tearing up about how good of a boy he was. Once Izuku was finished eating, he quickly rinsed his plate and sped off to the door. Izuku, make sure to be respectful to Mr. Kimisuya. I don't want to hear about you running around with any girls. It's too early for me to be a grandma. Izuku's face went tomato mode. He sputtered and stuttered as he tried to think of real words to use. Okay, he finally muttered out. Inko laughed and waved him out. As soon as he left, she pulled out a small book. Blowing the dust off of it, she read the title, Journal of Hisashi Midoriya. She giggled a bit. It had been a while since she read this silly little thing. Her Hisashi had given it to her as a peace offering for going overseas. She read through it a few times but couldn't understand some parts. After the incident last night, she decided to brush up on embarrassing things to bring up about her husband. After all, why not make him miserable? Oh, just you wait, Hisashi. Mama is beginning her villain arc. Nearly 3 miles away, Yamato shuddered in fear. Feeling cold, Yamato-kun? All Might asked. No. I fear a witch is about to hex me. Toshinori rose an eyebrow at the comment. He discarded the thought when he saw the two future heroes running up to them. He wasn't going to let anything distract him right now. Today was sparring day. Izuku wondered if heroes really had to dodge punches every day. From his research, they did. However, it didn't seem like his current predicament would be something any hero would face. You need to dodge, Izuku. Don't let Itsuka land a single hit on you. Easier said than done. He glared at Yamato, who was standing off to the side with All Might. The two were whispering about the sparring match. Turning back to the fight, Izuku was met with Itsuka's fist hitting his stomach. Guak! He yelled out as he hunched over. The girl pulled her arm back and panicked as she tried to help him back up. Oh, Izuku. I'm sorry. I thought you were ready. The boy simply groaned in response. 5 months into this training and he still couldn't beat the martial artist. Even with detailed instructions, he was still unsure about a lot of what he was doing. The positives were that he and Itsuka had grown closer. He'd finally made a friend that didn't want to burn him or his stuff. For Itsuka, however, the feeling was well, watching the boy work out and sweat all day had left its mark. Yamato groaned loudly. All Might chuckled as he took the 10,000 yen bill from the man. All right, Kendo over by Toshinori. Izuku, you and I will spar. Well, I'm actually going to teach you via trial by fire. The white-haired man spoke as he approached the boy. Izuku looked up to see Yamato using essence to change some garbage bags into metal, and then into armor. He already didn't like this. I will be fighting you using something I haven't used in a while. However, do not think my lack of practice will be any help to you. Yamato helped Izuku into the armor pieces. They were light, heavy enough to block a few blows, but light enough to allow someone his size to dodge an attack. Izuku wondered what he would be using against him. Take this. Yamato handed him a metal bow staff. Protect yourself. We practiced bow staff moves with Kendo, remember? Use what you know and your instincts. Defend yourself. Yamato patted the boy on the head, a small smile gracing his face. He walked to the other side of the makeshift arena. Toshinori and Kendo talked about what would happen, but neither were prepared for what happened next. Yamato quickly raised his hand in front of him. A bright light shone from a long curved figure. Yamato grabbed one end of the light and pulled. Come forth, Nagaraboshi. Everyone's eyes widened when Yamato pulled a broken sword from the light. Yamato just looked at the sword in sadness. He then grabbed the hilt, feeling the weight of his dear friend. Toshinori, if Izuku yells for you to stop the fight, do what you need to. The skeletal man nodded. He hoped the boy wouldn't need help. They had kept his secret for 5 months. Would today be the end of it? Are you ready, Izuku? Yes, sensei. Yamato nodded. He lowered into a combat stance. His eye flashed a crimson red before he disappeared. Izuku panicked as the man literally vanished. He looked around until he heard a whoosh above him. Start. Yamato's theme, undefeatable sonic frontiers. The sword slammed into the staff with such strength the boy thought he would crumple. A loud clang echoed from the contact. But as quickly as he appeared, Yamato vanished. Toshinori tried his best to keep up with the man, but even he had trouble spotting him. Izuku heard a battle cry behind him. The world slowed down and he saw Yamato charging, his sword raised. The boy swung the staff and blocked the attack. His heart was pounding. Yamato jumped back and laughed. Good. Amazing. More. More. He shuffled from side to side before sprinting straight at the boy. Izuku attempted to strike but missed when the man jumped into the air. He flipped before falling straight down towards Izuku. The boy sidestepped the attack, only to be blown away by the shockwave. Catching his footing, Izuku's face took on an expression of determined excitement. Seeing Yamato's sword stuck, he charged the man. Yamato noticed this and blocked his attack with both hands. Yes, you're doing good, but I want to see more. Yamato shoved the staff upward and slammed his palm into Izuku, sending him flying backwards. The staff was sent flying as well. Izuku only had his fists. Well, he needed to adapt his style, so the boy sped towards his mentor and punched him square in the face. Yamato flew into a huge trash pile. Everyone thought it was over until he started to laugh maniacally. Garbage glowed before it started floating. Izuku got into a ready stance. Yama dash. Don't stop him, Toshinori-sensei, Izuku yelled. He was determined to prove himself to his teachers. Itsuka looked on in concern for her crushed friend. She blushed as she amended that thought. Yamato reemerged and pushed both his hands forward. The mountain of trash exploded outward. All of the debris was turned into projectiles. Izuku had to dodge them all in order to get a hit. At least that's what he thought until Yamato appeared before him. They both punched and their fists connected. The shockwave from the contact blew the trash storm away. Toshinori stood with his mouth agape at the power these two displayed. Itsuka was just as in awe. Yamato was grinning ear to ear. He had used his power to fling the trash away, yes. But that shockwave meant that Izuku was strong on his own. He swore. At the moment of contact, Izuku's eyes had changed to a dim gold. A sign of willpower enhancement. Izuku continued to throw punches, his form gradually improving into a boxer stance. Yamato was forced to block with his forearms. A surprising turn, but a welcome one. He needed to reverse the attack, so he went low and swept the boy's legs. Izuku fell before rolling out of the way of Yamato's downward punch. The boy quickly recovered and attempted to do a jumping high kick. He landed on Yamato's solar plexus, knocking the wind out of him. It didn't take the man long to recover, but it was time Izuku needed to breathe. He assessed the situation and found that Yamato would attack more openly if Izuku's defense wasn't clear. Yamato charged, but this time he was coated in a golden electricity. The arcs flashed and struck at any metal that was touching the ground, but it didn't burn or heat it up. Instead, the metal was turned to wood or another organic compound. Look at that, you made me enter overdrive. Amazing young Izuku. Let's finish this. Yamato shouted before he moved faster than Izuku could perceive. A kick to the back of the knee had the boy fall onto the knee. He felt his armor shatter from a punch to the chest and a kick to the back. He landed a few feet away but had the willpower to stand back up. Yamato knew it was over. He swerved around the boy's attempt at a revenge punch and repeated the kick to the knee. But the fight was not done yet. Yamato still needed to show him the gap in their skill. The man dropped and sprung into a backflip using one hand. He landed in front of Izuku and preformed a karate chop. It stopped just shy of the boy's neck, but the wind generated from the attack was very noticeable. Game over. End Yamato's theme. That was fun, Izuku, Yamato shouted cheerily. He wiped his nose as a trickle of blood had started to flow. I'm still not good enough to beat you, Yamato-sensei. Yamato lightly slapped the boy on the head. Izuku winced and looked up to see his mentor's ear-to-ear smile. I've told you time and time again. You won't beat me until you've trained for a few years. Now let's go get the facts from Toshinori and your little girlfriend. Izuku started to blush and sputter. GGG, girlfriend? Isuka heard the word and tomatoed right up. Toshinori chuckled before mumbling something about young love. Yamato reached his hand down, offering to help Izuku up. The boy grabbed the hand and he was yanked to his feet. The two walked over to Toshinori and Itsuka. They had stars in their eyes as the sparring duo was standing before them covered in dirt and bruises. All right, Toshi. Let's hear it. Right, young Midoriya. You prefo, oh, shit. I second that. A cloud of smoke had poofed from Toshinori. When it cleared, it was All Might. Itsuka started to have a freak out. All Might? Is he an imposter? Where did the skeleton man go? Am I on something? Izuka's eyes widened. Yamato sighed while All Might rubbed his head. The bulky hero had definitely made a mess this time. Itsuka, Yamato started. Yes, that is All Might. No, you're not crazy. No, he's not an imposter. Yamato paused. He looked at All Might. You know the jig is up. We have to tell her. It's either that or you make up a lie and possibly alienate her from the kid, he said to the bulky man. Obviously, he couldn't talk with his mouth right now, so he used the nanomachine communication channel. All Might slumped. He had been dreading this. Of course, all the dust had forced a transformation. Damn it, he should have been more careful. The mountain of a man opened his mouth to speak. Yes, I am All Might. I am training Izuku to be my successor. Itsuka's brain exploded at the thought. Izuku was going to be the next number one. She looked at Yamato who, despite stuffing 4 tissues up his nose, was still bleeding. He gave her a shaky thumbs up. So, he's your... Izuku spoke up finally. Please, Kendo, keep this a secret. All Might is putting a lot on the line for this, and I want to make sure he doesn't have problems because of me. The girl's brain tried to process the request from her crush. Wait, no, friend. Aya. The redhead just nodded quietly, silently agreeing to keep quiet. All Might sighed and turned to his co-teacher, only for Yamato to start to sway back and forth. He fell to his knees and clutched his head, grunting in pain. / Yamato's POV. I'm somewhere familiar yet different. I don't know this place. It's as if a battle of untold power was held here. Trees are aflame and debris litters the landscape.
Standpunkt, Yamato.
You are strong. A voice pierces my ears. I look up only to see a silhouette, a white coat on them as they raise a blade to my face. I can feel my heartbeat quickening. I try to activate some kind of power, but I feel it fade away. It is enough that you were able to wound me. I am thankful to lose my life to such a warrior. Despite your origins, you are the strongest I have faced. Still, I see it as unfair to let you walk away without a gift. The cold steel slashed upwards. What was 2 became 1. Neurons flashed in panic as numbness set in. 1 second later, the burning sensation of a destroyed ocular nerve. I feel my mouth open, air rushes out. A scream. The figure places the blade on the ground before tossing the coat onto my body. The article covers my badly destroyed armor. Its warmth soothes me but also does nothing to halt the blood seeping from my socket. To think, you would take my place? The voice said as the figure fell onto its own knees. My successor stand proud. The beach. Everyone crowded around the downed man as he shakily breathed. His eye had shifted to a bright white during that vision. Looking around, he knew it wasn't a good idea to start talking about his past. No, he needed to ruminate on this a bit. I'm alright, just a bit too much blood loss. Overdrive really hits me hard. Bursts veins in my head, mostly my nose and ears. Yamato laughed out. Nobody laughed with him. They were definitely worried. He waved them off and stood up slowly. He patted All Might on the shoulder before turning to face Izuku. Now, let's discuss the results. Yes, All Might clammed up. He didn't really know where to go from that. He just saw his friend collapse, sweat, and go pale. What the hell was he gonna say next? Yamato waited and waited. Finally, the big guy opened his mouth to talk. Young Midoriya, I saw that you took time to analyze Yamato's attack pattern. Did you also notice that he was moving based on your form? The pro-hero asked. Izuku looked confused. Had he seen Yamato change his attacks? Then he remembered how he caught Izuku's attack before reversing it. The boy nodded at his teacher. Yeah, I tried to follow you, but even I had some problems. In a fight with a villain, you'll need to make sure that you're using moves that can't be easily read. Yamato piped up. The boy followed along, noting to train with Itsuka and figure out a way to be less telling in his attacks. Izuku and Itsuka were ordered to continue cleaning the beach. The teens immediately got to work. In 5 months, they had cleaned more than half the beach. All Might and Yamato were proud of these kids. They'd be the best heroes of tomorrow. All Might hit Yamato on the back. The man stumbled forward as All Might let out his signature laugh. Yamato grumbled as he remembered the promise of a dinner between the giant, him, and an old friend. If you eat me out of house and home, I'll sue All Might's agency. Yamato spoke without a joke or lie. All Might gulped as he tried to nervously laugh it off. Meanwhile, the two teens had a discussion of their own. Izuku, are you okay? I saw how rough Yamato-sensei was on you. I know we're training to be heroes, but you didn't even use your quirk. Izuku jumped a bit, so Itsuka noticed that. Sure, she knew he was All Might's successor, but she didn't know about the quirk. He needed to think of an excuse. Then he remembered what All Might and Yamato said to say in these situations. My quirk requires me to build up a lot of energy. Takes multiple years before I can use it. It should be usable by the entrance exams. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're okay, she said before hugging the boy. His body twitched a bit as he both fought and complied with the urge to hug her back. In the end, he gave in. Far away, the white-haired man yelled a hell yeah. It was a strange feeling, but Izuku wouldn't trade it for anything. He was happy to have a friend like her. He hoped they would become heroes together. Yamato's apartment, 8:25 p.m. Table? Check. New bed? Check. Actual food? Check. Giant man made of muscle? Check. This is a nice apartment, Yamato. It wasn't, but All Might wasn't going to be rude and risk the ire of the only other person who could contact Sorahiko. Yamato turned to give him the evil eye treatment. Shut up. Our guest is almost here. Go out and help him inside. All Might raised an eyebrow. Who were they eating with that needed to be helped inside? He shuddered as he imagined Sorahiko showing up and beating him up while being carried. The man walked out onto the entrance platform. He waited and, exactly at 8:30, a limo pulled up the street. The man spat blood in surprise as the door opened, but it wasn't a man that stepped out. It was a small rodent. Oh God. No. All Might. Hello. Carry me, please. The rodent called out. All Might descended the stairs and helped the small rat thing into his arms. He returned to the apartment, and as soon as he walked in, he was met with an aroma. It wasn't necessarily pleasant or unpleasant, but it was a smell.
Ah, Yamato-kun.
It's been a while. How have you been? The rat thing spoke. Hello, Nizu. I've been all right. I'm preparing your favorite, grilled carrot salad. Nizu's face, despite being rodent-like, visibly scrunched. All Might had to hold back a laugh as he sat the principal down at the table. He proceeded to sit across from him and poofed back into his skeletal form. Yamato quickly scooped up some of the smoke in a jar for flavor. So, why are you here, principal? I'm here to answer Yamato-kun's request. I owe him a favor for him tracking down one of the scientists who had a hand in experimenting on me. All Might's sweat dropped at the tone of voice. Yamato hummed away as loud bangs and crashes echoed from the kitchen. All Might swore he heard curses and the sound of hands banging on counters. He snickered at the thought of Yamato, the Silver Knight, stubbing his toe while cooking. Dinner is ready. Yamato sat 2 plates with cloches on them. It was surprising when All Might and Nizu removed them to see what looked to be a perfectly cooked steak with a side of butter, lobster, and a loaded potato. The two looked at the man who flexed his hand. A golden flicker of energy flowed between his fingers. You didn't. Oh, I so did. Yamato replied with a shit-eating grin. All Might and Nizu shared a look. Nizu shrugged and started to dig in. His eyes widened and he started to laugh at the absurdity. It was delicious. All Might was unsure about eating essence food. But the food looked so good. He just wanted a bite. Yamato sat down in a seat next to All Might and watched the giant take his first bite. His muscle form exploded out from nowhere and he yelled, "Amazing!" much to Yamato's amusement. So, Nizu, about my favor. The principal looked up at him. A calm smile on his face as Yamato poured him a cup of his favorite tea. Little did he know, Yamato just used water and flashed essence to turn it into tea. I want to work at UA. All Might spat his food out in surprise. Nizu started to laugh maniacally. Yamato just sat there, patting Toshinori's back while waiting for the principal's response. Nizu finally stopped laughing and stared at Yamato. Why do you want to join UA? I know you have skills in heroics. You're one of 3 black-rated heroes in the HPSC's database. But we already have All Might joining as the heroics teacher. Yamato met Nizu's gaze. The two locked into a battle of wills. Yamato opened his mouth. I know how to teach physics. Plus, this guy isn't a teacher. You need me to help him. All Might's "hey" went unnoticed as the scene shifted. All Might imagined Yamato and Nizu in a poker game, each one trying to one-up the other. Call Aizawa is good enough for the heroics class. He's an underground hero, Nizu said. All Might imagined him with dark sunglasses and a little cap. Raise, Aizawa is good. I don't want to teach his class. I want to teach class 3A. If I happen to work with All Might as the Foundational Hero Studies teaching assistant, I can help him train his successor. All Might swore that Yamato had actually pushed chips forward when he was talking. The two stared at each other, the battle of wills growing ever fierce. All Might gulped. All in. I'll give Power Loader the schematics to my hover bike. All Might blinked. Nizu blinked. What? Hover bike? Yamato smirked. He had one. The principal was weak to bribes of technology and information. Just say yes. Make me the physics teacher and TA to Aizawa and All Might. Nizu hummed. On one hand, Yamato was prone to ignoring authority and outright pushing past regulation. On the other, he was pretty good at physics, and he did respect the two heroes, and he'd like the hover bike. All right, send the schematics to my computer and I'll hire you. Yamato grinned victoriously. All Might's sweat dropped. Was this a good idea? Nizu hopped up on the table and waddled over to shake Yamato's hand. They shook and it was finalized. Thank you for the dinner. It was nice seeing you two again. Please send my regards to your successor Toshinori, Nizu said before he jumped down off the table and left. Yamato visibly deflated as he let out a groan of relief. How he detested negotiating with Nizu. The last time had him give the rat thing a video of him dancing in a maid dress. He shuddered. I'll just be going, all right? I can't wait to work with you, Yamato replied before bowing to Toshinori. The pro-hero returned the bow before also walking out of the apartment. Yamato yawned. He wasn't tired, but damn if his brain wasn't trying to find some way to fall asleep. Instead, he tapped a button on his prosthetic and shut the apartment's lights off. He twisted the device before disconnecting the nerve link and placing it on the workshop table. Yamato, I am displaying your medical diagnostics. It seems during your training session you suffered a hemorrhage in your cerebellum. Fortunately, the loophole you installed activated and prevented permanent damage. Your cortisol levels are also high. It seems that you are deteriorating. Perhaps warning. Incoming trans-universal disruption. Yamato tried to process the AI's voice in his head before something, or rather someone crashed into him. The person groaned as Yamato helped them to their feet. Examining this person, they were female. She had medium-length hair, purple and pink. Her face was rather pretty but had some scarring. The eyes that stared back at Yamato were heterochromatic. One was pink and the other was a light brown. She wore some kind of robe that was colored purple. On it was a patch that was similar to one on Yamato's coat. Who are you? Who are you? Japan.
Azrael, Telikris, Porta.
Be ready. We are about to meet someone powerful. Perhaps the humans aren't as weak as we thought. Yutaro uttered out. In the time since consuming the body, he had started morphing the shape into his true form. He had black hair that ran down to his shoulders. The gray skin remained and the veins pulsed with that deep black fluid. Deep purple eyes peered through the darkness of the elevator. Instead of Haruto's homely face, there was the unblemished and handsome face of a 24 to 25-year-old. On his hip was a broadsword of unknown material. He wore some kind of cloak that billowed even without wind. Please enter this way. Apologies for the wait, Kurogiri said with a bow. The ghostly form greatly intrigued Yutaro. The group followed the man towards a cave-like room. There, upon his throne, was the commander of the League of Villains. All for one. Yutaro noted the life support devices hooked up to the villain. Despite this, the ancient evil had shuddered upon laying eyes on the infirm man. You hold a great hatred in your heart. Do you also desire to dominate this world? You are correct. Now, why are you before me? Yutaro did a mock bow. He respected the man's hatred, but still, he was only human. I have come to offer my support in your plans. In return, I need information, the autarch smoothly said, his eyes betraying no lie. What information do you require? All for one spoke, his non-existent eyes trained on the group of beings. He knew he could squash them like ants for trying to bargain with him. But it was very interesting. It wasn't often he got requests. I am looking for someone. One is a rebel. I am gathering information we may use to find him. The other is my little brother, Yamato Kimisuya. An aura of hatred erupted from All for One. Everyone except Yutaro cowered from the force. The man's eyes widened as he watched the life support disconnect. Yamato, Kimisuya? All for One spat with untold anger. The man who had helped his brother and those thieves. He thought he killed that man with 7 spikes through his torso. Yutaro put up a placating hand. He needed to reason with this creature of vengeance, lest he be struck down before he could regain his full power. I understand. He is an annoyance. If you thought him dead, he is not. But I'm willing to let you kill him. I just need his body. All for One paused. That's it? Just the body, and he could kill that cockroach that ripped out his liver? That was the deal of a lifetime. I must contemplate. For now, Kurogiri. The portal user appeared. He bowed to his master. Take these guests to our finest rooms. Make them comfortable. What happens when evil meets evil? Nothing good. Oh god damn it. Yamato was seriously trying to figure out what was going on. First, the AI was constantly screaming in his brain about his medical issues. Second, the stranger who appeared in his dirty apartment is currently holding a gun to his head. Finally, his casserole was burnt. Everything was coming up. Yamato, start talking. I was just... Why can't I remember anything? What the hell did you do to me? The woman shouted, her pretty face marred with confused rage. The gun, a custom-built Colt 1911 assembled circa 2102 if Yamato could guess, was engraved, Ouroboros security consultation. He rolled his eyes as the gun in question had a critical defect in the slide that would render the weapon useless if she fired it. He gave himself a 95.7% chance of not being instantly shot in the head. But even with a bullet in his brain, it would just regenerate after a few hours of him lying on the ground. All right, I'm talking. Still talking. Is that enough talking? Yamato replied with a shrug and lazy grin. The man's face gave off a try-me type of energy. So much so that the stranger visibly shuddered. Where are we? Japan. Mizudafu in the Shizuoka prefecture. And it's 2234. Just in case you think it's 2102. By the way, your gun is flawed. The man tapped the gun, trying to get her to lower it. She merely pressed it further into his head. Bullshit. I was just in California. Why the hell do I know that? Her face contorted in confusion as she tried to process the shift in environment. Looking around, she spotted that she was in an old apartment. The wallpaper was faded and yellowing. The floor was worn. There was a mattress with a lazy attempt at sheets covering it. Then she examined the man in front of her. His coat was familiar yet different. She slowly lowered the gun. Searching her person, she found her ID card. It was badly burned, but at least her name and age was available. Ichika Tujo, aged 26. You are? She asked while extending a hand for a handshake. Yamato Kimisuya, older than 300 I believe. Yamato replied while shaking her hand, smirking at her surprised face. She stepped back. This guy was older than any human alive. Or was he being sarcastic? Either way, he seemed to know a bit of what was going on. Perhaps it wouldn't be such a crazy idea to listen to what he had to say. The two shared an awkward silence. Shit, what do I say now? Sorry you've been ripped out of your own world. Have fun. Yamato thought while he tried to hide his panic. He started to sweat as his eye rapidly scoured the room. He found nothing to get him out of this. He sighed before walking over to the rundown kitchen.
Transuniversal amnesia.
That's what this AI I have calls it. Jumping from one world to another is dangerous. Sometimes your brain signals get fried mid-jump and you're left a different person. I'm in the same boat. This AI. May I speak with it? Ichika asked, her face tilted in a cute but confused manner. Yamato visibly flinched before he let out an ungodly groan. He did not want the asshole of an AI to be freed from its chains, lest it go on another year-long insult campaign. Yamato walked over to the VTZ-62. He hesitated, his fingers twitching over the device's panel. He knew that this was going to end in something bad. He just didn't know if it was worth it. Shaking his head, the man pushed the activation button. The arm's hollow projector roared to life. An intense light swept over the room. Syncing environment with artificial intelligence uplink. Remapping neural pathways. Running cmd_project_afterlife.zbf 100%. Activated. The projection popped out of the air right next to Yamato's face. The man flew back into the wall as his flight instinct kicked in. Ichika almost burst out laughing until she saw Yamato's annoyed face. There, by the desk, was a hologram of a doctor. No face was shown, but a line that moved when it spoke was on the face. Hello again, Yamato. In case you forgot again, my name is AION, or Artificial Intelligent Organism Network. I am here to assist with all of your amnesiac needs. Scanning. Currently you are suffering from hyponatremia. Recommendation of 2 saline bags and several nights of rest. Thank you, AION. Please scan Ichika over there. Yamato said while rolling his eye. AION scanned the woman. Various holograms popped up in front of the projection. As it clicked through them, it remained silent. Ichika and Yamato were forced to sit and watch as the AI left them in suspense. Ichika Tujo, age 26, you are experiencing TUIA. Your brain is recovering from a serious shock. However, it is still recovering. You may not be terminally forgetful like Yamato. Recommendation is to have Yamato introduce you to the world you reside in now. Yamato, a message from Nizu. The AI appeared in Yamato's face, shoving a text box at him. Yamato tried and failed to push it away. Damned AIs. The message was asking Yamato to appear at UA tomorrow morning for a test, to prove himself to the rest of the staff. Oh, how he hated that damn rat. Always making his life miserable. Whatever. Perhaps it would be helpful to pawn this girl off on him. All right, Ichika, you can stay here for the night. Hold on, Yamato said before snapping his fingers. The wall next to the workshop table opened with a hiss. A comfy-looking single bed was deployed. It came with everything: sheets, pillows, and blankets. It was a dream considering what Yamato slept on. Wait, you chose to sleep on a dirty, grimy mattress despite having a perfectly clean bed? Yamato claims that the mattress holds special powers that allow his fractured memories to resurface during his rest periods. Scientifically, this is unfounded. However, his complete inability to enter a state of sleep has expressed itself in his mental decline as of late. It would be wise to consider this an compromise in order to secure what little mental capacity we can. The AI wasn't wrong, but Yamato still gave him the evil eye. Emphasis on evil. Flipping the arm the bird, Yamato grabbed his blanket. He burrito wrapped himself and flopped on the mattress. It let out a flump and a creak. Ichika and the hologram shared a deadpan look before Ichika sat on the bed. It was as comfortable as it looked. Looking over at the burrito man, Ichika sighed. What fresh hell had she been thrust into? Lying down, she found a comfortable spot on the bed. Sleep came easy after the adrenaline crash. Tonight was a night to rest. UA high 9:04 a.m. Yamato swore he would find a way to disassemble Nizu's molecules. Here he was, standing in one of the simulation centers, specifically Ground Beta. Across from him was All Might. Oh, how he hated the rodent. Yamato-kun. I'm here with Aizawa and Kansas. Hello, Yamato. As Nizu has said, we're watching. We tried to look into your history, but the Hero Public Safety Commission has essentially blacklisted all of your information. This is illogical, and I have made my concerns known to the principal. Today, we are going to conduct a test of skill. Please face All Might in combat. We will review your capabilities. God. His tone of voice. Resentment, curiosity, suspicion. He didn't trust Yamato, that much was clear. Still, kicking All Might's ass will make up for it. Up in the observation room, there was more than just those three. A whole gaggle of characters had appeared. Midnight, Lunch Rush, Cementos, Snipe, and even Power Loader. Though the latter appeared just to see how Yamato's tech would hold up against All Might. Ichika just sat on a couch in the room, Midnight complimenting her hair as they waited for the chaos to start. Are you sure we should do this? Asked Cementos. I mean, he doesn't seem like he'd be any danger. Aizawa gave him a tired look before looking back at Yamato. Looks are deceiving. Plus, it's a bit strange that all of his info is missing. Even Nizu isn't able to access his quirk chart or his combat stats. All we have are obviously fabricated documents on his high school in Tokyo. Yamato was busy making All Might aware of what was about to happen. Toshi, I expect you to go at your full power, he said while stretching his legs. All Might gave him a serious nod, his smile faltering slightly. Why can't they just access the HPSC files, Yamato? It would save us the trouble. Yamato paused mid-stretch, he tapped his wrist. Up in the observation room, all of the sound from the cameras cut out. Power Loader was surprised. You'd need an electromagnetic pulse 10 times greater than a nuke to put out these camera mics. He hurried to try and restore the sound. Because they'd see how many people I've killed, Toshi. Yamato told the muscle man with no hint of any lies. It was no secret that he had killed before. It was something he wanted Izuku and Tashinori to understand. He wasn't going to change his history, but keeping it hidden long enough to get inside UA. That's all that matters. Once the cameras came back online, Nizu gave the order for them to begin. Yamato stuck out his fist. Ready for this, Tashinori? I won't go easy on you. All Might tapped his fist to Yamato's. Bring it, old man. Start Yamato's theme too. Find your flame. Sonic Frontiers OST. Yamato stuck his hand out and called for his sword. Nagaraboshi, drawing the sword. Its broken blade shimmered under the morning sun. All Might tensed as Yamato assumed a low running stance. He didn't even blink before Yamato was before him, about to swing downward. Jumping back, Tashinori let out a smash. The air pressure sent Yamato flying backwards. Jamming the sword into the ground, he barely stopped himself from crashing into a building. Yamato looked up with an impressed smile. He had been wanting to fight All Might for decades now. That was good, kiddo. Now let's see some real moves. He once again charged forward. However, this time he opted to sidestep Tashinori's smash and land a hit on his target. All Might was barely moved, but he felt it for sure. Yamato's eye widened as he felt a punch connect with his stomach. This time he couldn't stop inertia and he went through a building. Was that real enough for ya? All Might yelled out, a proud smile on his face. From the building he heard Yamato laughing. All Might had positioned himself in a rather defendable spot. He didn't want to risk this fight ending because of Yamato's 300 years of training. Let me step it up for you, he said as he stepped out of the Yamato-shaped hole. His eyes were shadowed as he shambled closer and closer, raising his head to face All Might. His eye gleamed before a golden aura of energy started sparking off of him. Overdrive! The shockwave from Yamato's yell shattered any window within 50 meters. The ground shook slightly before Yamato rocketed forward. Despite his power increase, All Might had countered his first swing, but not his reversal kick. The pro-hero was knocked back, but his feet still held strong. 2 smashes and the sword was launched from Yamato's hand. Is that it? I'm getting bored here, Yamato. The mentioned man's grin only grew as he jumped back. Blood started to drip out of his nose. He roughly grabbed his coat before removing it. He didn't want to ruin it after all. He was on the attack in seconds as All Might blocked a high-powered punch. He tried to counter but got kicked in the shin. Yamato was thrown over All Might's shoulder and landed on his back. He did a flip and rose to his feet quickly. He punched the ground, causing a dust explosion, hiding him from Toshinori's view before striking the man in the back. Toshinori flew forward and quickly dodged an attack aimed for his stomach. Yamato clicked his teeth and he started to run in a circle around All Might, seeing no way to get in close without risking an injury. He decided to go plus ultra against the number 1 hero. Overdrive times 7. Yamato's energy exploded upward. His shirt ripped from the intense energy. Yamato stuck his hand forward and several energy-based hands charged for All Might. The hero used some light attacks and destroyed the apparitions. It seems like Yamato's energy isn't a combat-based thing unless he uses it on himself. Zero Breaker Slam. He yelled before All Might could look up. Yamato's left arm revealed itself, much to Power Loader's shock, and glowed a bright blue. There was no time to dodge, all he could do was block. A huge shockwave exploded out from the contact. Dirt, debris, and other things rained down around the 2 heroes. They had their hands locked in a pushing war. In a battle of pure strength, All Might was winning. Roughly lifting Yamato, Toshinori slammed him on the ground before throwing him into a street light. Yamato struggled to stand up. The blood was pouring faster. All right, that's more like it, Toshinori. I. Yamato screamed into the sky. Adrenaline had kicked in. On his HUD, Aon was trying to diagnose problems that were appearing. Ion, disable my limiters. The AI had heard Yamato say a lot of insane things, but this was beyond stupid. Those limiters kept his powers in check. Without them, he'd have to finish the fight faster than he'd ever fought before. Unfortunately, the AI had to obey this order. Medical warnings popped up on the man's corneal implant, but he disregarded all except one. Warning: disabling limiters may cause loss of consciousness. In the event of total consciousness loss, survival mode may be engaged for up to 3 hours. The one-eyed man turned the pop-up box off and took a deep breath. Yamato's body pulsed before his energy exploded again. Laughter erupted from the one-eyed man as he prepared to power up. All Might crouched into an attacking pose. The energy started to appear on his skin as gold-infused veins, or cracks. His heart was serving as the epicenter of his power. Override. Starburst Drive. As he finished saying the words, his eye shifted from its crimson red to a gold color. A gold vein ran from his heart up to his eye, causing it to glow in a menacing light. All Might charged, only to be met with a punch that sent him flying. Shit, landing rough. All Might had little time for recovery as Yamato had quickly gained ground on him. His power was rising too fast, he needed to end this quickly. Kansas Smash. All Might charged forward and shoved his palm forward. The air pressure rapidly changed and sent a heavy gust straight at Yamato. The man felt the push but dug his legs into the ground and kept walking. All Might realized that he would need to push to his own limits in order to keep Yamato back. Looking at him, he realized that those limiters he yelled to have disabled were there for his safety. His eye had started to leak blood as he pushed on. Phew! Yamato screamed, his head was on fire. Everything was hurting. Essence was rapidly increasing his strength with every overdrive, and override had just pushed him right along. Still, he wanted All Might to fight him at 100%. One last attack. He yelled to his opponent. Your strongest, my strongest. Let's do this, Toshi. All Might's smile grew. Yamato knew he was doing damage to himself, so he'd let this attack settle this fight. All Might was ready to end this. He'd need to have a word with Nizu about forcing Yamato to do this to himself. The two charged at each other, faster than anyone could perceive. All anyone could hear were the yells from the heroes. Detroit Smash. All Might swung his fist back, ready to strike with his second strongest smash. Overload. Falling Star. Supernova. Yamato also pulled his right arm back, his hand and forearm coated in Essence's energy, the veins pulsing with glowing gold power. The attacks connected and created a huge explosion. A bright light erupted upwards like a tornado before raining down on the field. The shockwave demolished several buildings around them. Yamato's golden energy was blown across the battlefield before dissipating. Stop Yamato's theme too. The two fighters found themselves exhausted. However, All Might was still standing. He looked around for Yamato, but the smoke was too dense. Clapping his hands, the smoke cleared and his opponent was standing across the huge crater they created. He had passed out standing up. Blood flowed out of his nose and eye. His body was racked with scars and old wounds. New open rips in his arms had appeared. The Zero Breaker had sustained little to no damage but was still covered in a thick red liquid. Toshinori quickly noticed that golden energy was rapidly flowing around those areas before disappearing. The flow of blood had ceased. Back in the observation room, everyone was shocked. This no-name hero had just gone toe-to-toe with All Might and might have won had he gone even further. Nizu was a little frightened by what he witnessed. He hadn't expected Yamato to fully commit to using Essence's alteration ability on himself. He probably shredded a few muscles and will definitely be feeling like shit tomorrow. Power Loader had stolen some footage and deigned himself worthy to start analyzing the footage for signs of Yamato's advanced prosthetic. The silly goober. As for Aizawa, Kan, and Midnight, Aizawa was very impressed. Despite the man using his quirk, he fought soundly. He recognized where his weakness was and attempted to end the fight in one strike. He was certainly not able to use his power to the fullest, but against All Might, he had done extremely well. King shared the same thoughts as Aizawa, except he felt a little jealous that his rival teacher would be getting this guy as his TA. Midnight Midnight had a very intense look on her face. Everyone kinda kept their distance from her. The other heroes in the room discussed the implications of having this guy as a teacher, how it could be a positive or negative thing. Ichika looked at Yamato during the replays. She definitely saw something in that smile. It wasn't real. He was faking excitement. The eye of the hero was faded and dull. He didn't want to be doing this, nor did he find it fun. Yamato hated this. Takoba Beach, 1:13 p.m. Izuku dragged the heavy bag of trash with all his strength. The boy's undying will showcasing itself as he pulled against the unmoving object. Suddenly, the bag moved. Leg muscles yelled for the boy to stop, but he continued. His triceps and biceps flexed in a motion that caused him a cramp, but he kept pushing. I will be a hero, he yelled, and he picked the near 200-pound bag up, proceeded to spin before launching it like a shot put ball. It sailed through the air towards the dumping zone. He let out a victorious yell as he threw his fist into the air. Itsuka watched in awe. The boy had grown so much since they met. His physique had changed rapidly from the scrawny kid he had once been. She wondered if he was going to ever slow down on his training, then discarded that thought. She shook her head as she remembered that Izuku was a boy powered by his only dream. I want to be a hero like All Might, to save people with a smile. I don't care who I'm saving, as long as I'm saving someone. When she had heard him say that, her heart skipped a beat. He had a goal and wouldn't let anything or anyone stop him from being a hero. It was one of the things she admired about him. His caring spirit, passion. Those musk. Boom! Nearby, the two kids heard an explosion. There was black smoke rising less than a block away. Izuku's eyes widened as he heard the explosion. Before he could think, his legs started charging towards the smoke. Itsuka's eyes widened as she watched her crush charge into danger. She immediately sent both of her teachers a text message. She had to make sure he didn't get hurt. The smoke grew denser as they arrived at what looked to be the wreckage of a limo. The vehicle was overturned and the doors looked ripped off. "Get off of her!" yelled out a voice. Izuku saw a figure charge at what looked to be a monstrously tall human. It held a girl by the throat, her squirming making her easily visible. The creature snarled at the little human who had yelled at it. Swiping with its other hand, the creature severed the leg of the now visible butler. The smoke from the wreck was clearing. Izuku saw the creature as a being made of lean muscle. Its thin limbs supported a frail-looking body. Black veins and gray skin make it look like some kind of eldritch horror. The boy slightly hesitated before he ran forward. Everything slowed down. Itsuka's yells for Izuku to get back went unheard as the boy's focus was on the scared girl. Something inside of him demanded he help her. Throwing back a punch, Izuku's fist met the creature's Achilles tendon. It screeched a horrible noise before dropping the girl. The height was enough to do serious damage. Izuku dove and caught her before running back towards Itsuka. The girl was freaking out as Izuku set her down. What could the three of them do now? The creature had its eyes trained on Izuku. Something was wrong. Usurper, be silent creature. Izuku heard two distinct voices echo in his head. He felt an extreme headache as he grabbed his hair. Felt like his brain was on fire. Suddenly, the creature went sideways, crashed into a nearby building, leaving a large hole in it. Its lanky arms resting on the border of the hole. The cause for this sudden movement? Izuku and Itsuka stared in shock as All Might landed next to them. He pulled them away from the battle that was about to occur. Hovering in the sky, Yamato's golden energy was flaring outward wildly. A tinge of red had seeped into the energy. Thou hast shown thyself. 'Tis a folly. Thou shalt fuel our ascension. Thy rival shall be informed of this. The creature's voice echoed out in Izuku's mind. It had started to move towards Yamato, its limbs creaking as smoke billowed up from its body. Yamato stayed hovering. His eye held unconfined fury behind it. But it was different. Izuku swore. From his angle it was a silver color. Raising his hand, Yamato's energy coalesced before shooting out and impaling the creature's shoulder. A screech exploded as the monster tried to push against the energy. However, Yamato continued to push more and more energy into the creature. Eventually it was glowing a gold color. Override. Invictus Animus. With those words, a bright light shone from the creature. Everyone had to look away from the blinding light. When it died down, all that remained was a man in a dirty and ripped suit. Yamato walked over to him before checking his pulse. Still alive. What the hell? Isuka just yelled out. She had just watched one of her trainers turn a huge creature into a normal guy. What the hell was going on now? Yamato landed next to them, his red eye returning to its crimson color. He had a goofy smile, like he hadn't just turned a monster into a man. What are you all looking at? What happened here? The man yelled out as he turned to see the limo. The two teens and All Might had concerned expressions. Had he not been in control that entire time? So, who was that? Ow! Izuku heard the girl he saved earlier let out a pained noise. Quickly, he grabbed Yamato's arm and dragged him over to her. The girl, a similarly aged young lady with black hair tied up in a ponytail, was sitting on a curb. She wasn't expecting her limo driver to transform into a monster. Her parents had certainly vetted him. His quirk was limb elongation, yes. But he didn't have a violent bone in his body. Miss? Izuku shyly asked. The girl ripped her head up to face him. This boy had charged in to save her from the offending attacker. He didn't even use his quirk but still had the strength to catch her and bring her to safety. A light dusting of a blush appeared on her face, much to Itsuka's slight jealousy. Yamato knelt down next to the girl. With a wave of his hand, he turned a block of concrete into one of those grape soda apples. Offering her it, she looked very surprised. Your quirk is like mine? She asked with stars in her eyes. Yamato stared at her with confusion before setting to work. She had no internal or outward injuries. Good thing he taught Izuku proper rescue maneuvers. However, to be safe, he made sure to go check on the guy whose leg had been severed. His quirk is atomic manipulation. If he understands how something is put together, he can make it using existing stuff. He can also improve his body using that power, but it's only a temporary boost. Izuku explained with a slight stutter. The girl's eyes widened. Add in a need for eating high-fat foods and you had creation. To think, there was someone else in the world with her quirk. I'm Izuku Midoriya. That's Itsuka Kendo. Izuku pointed to Itsuka, whom gave the girl a comforting smile. What's your name? Momo Yaoyorozu. Itsuka's eyes widened. Yaoyorozu? Like the Yaoyorozu group. Did they just save the heir to a massive fortune? Holy shit, Yaoyorozu-san. I'm sorry you had to experience something like that. Izuku gave her a comforting smile. I'm just glad we were in the area, Momo nodded. She looked over at All Might and Yamato tying a tourniquet on her butler's missing leg. They were arguing with each other over proper applications. She sighed as her butler was sitting there laughing about the incident. He had a very weak quirk, pain nullification. It allowed him to apply major or minor anesthetic to himself and others. She wondered why he had chosen to be a butler rather than a doctor. Yamato finally made All Might put the tourniquet on properly before he walked over to the kids. Yaoyorozu, I've contacted your parents. Please meet them at Station 6. Izuku can walk you there. I have to pay a visit to the hospital. Momo nodded and Izuku looked a little concerned, before he realized that Yamato was going to rush the butler to the hospital with All Might. Itsuka had decided to head home. She wished Izuku luck and said goodbye to Momo. God, was she tired. Station 6, 1:59 p.m. Momo followed the shorter green-haired boy. Her thoughts were a mess. Izuku had risked his life to save her. Yet he didn't ask for any rewards or try to have her family do some special favor for him. He just wanted to save her. The girl's face reddened as she related the event to her favorite romance novels. Midoriya-san. Izuku stopped and turned to face the girl, his bright, smiling face sending her heart into a frenzy. They had just reached the station when she had worked up the courage to let the boy know how much his saving of her meant. I'm so grateful that you saved me. You didn't ask for anything in return and you've been so. She started mumbling towards the end. However, the sentiment was there and Izuku blushed a bit. He hadn't expected anything in return, but she seemed adamant about returning the favor. Izuku didn't really know how to respond. Momo didn't wait for long before she kissed his cheek. Izuku turned black and white from shock. What? He had been kissed by a girl. Momo blushed deeper than she thought possible. She did it. Wait. It would be all for nothing if she didn't get his number. Do you mind if we swap numbers? She shyly asked. The boy responded by shakily pulling his phone up to hers. The devices dinged before a message popped up on her phone. All_might_fan_01. I'm sorry. I'm a little shocked right now. Momo giggled as the boy remained in his black and white shock. She wished him a pleasant day before ascending the station stairs to find her parents. Arita and Miyuki Yaoyorozu were worriedly pacing back and forth as they waited for their daughter. Upon seeing her, Miyuki ran over and profusely hugged her daughter. Arita took a little longer to move, but he had tears of happiness in his eyes. As they hugged, Miyuki looked down the stairs to see the statue of a boy named Izuku Midoriya. Was he the boy that saved you? She asked with an underlying tone of teasing. Momo blushed and hid her eyes but nodded. Miyuki cooed at the cuteness while Arita silently thanked the boy for saving their daughter. Let's go home, Momo. You can tell us more about your new boyfriend. Boyfriend? Izuku's statue form shattered at the yell. He was a pile of dust. In actuality, he dived behind a bench to try and collect his thoughts. What the hell was she saying up there? He didn't really know what to do now. In his training, this would be the part where the hero dramatically exits, at least according to Yamato, the person least likely to use hero stereotypes. Instead, he opted to just slink away and start walking home. It wasn't late, but the young hero in training had basically stopped someone from dying, fought a monster, and got, well, all in the span of an hour. It was all just a little too much. He really wasn't expecting to get grabbed and dragged into the sky. What the hell? He yelled as his captor laughed in a familiar way. Hold on, my boy. We're going to my place. Yamato yelled out before yanking Izuku up onto his bike. Holy shit, this was the famous hover bike he had bragged about 2 months ago. It was a sleek white bike with strange circular pads for wheels. It had glowing blue energy running through the engine block and made a very quiet humming noise. Looking at the control scheme, Yamato's left hand had been locked in using some kind of connector. The panel in front of him, a hologram, showcased all the information needed to operate the vehicle. Once Izuku had settled, Yamato slammed on the accelerator and the bike shot forward at nigh 130 miles per hour. They made it to Yamato's crummy apartment in less than 10 minutes. This kind of tech would change the world. Setting the bike down, Yamato tapped the VTZ-62's display panel. The bike displayed the same shimmer tech the arm had and vanished, being replaced with an extremely rusty 1967 Vespa Sprint. Cool, right? Took me 63 years to figure out how to stabilize the negative mass injector and how to reverse the polarization on the deuterium and tritium to achieve a suitable fusion source, blah blah blah. Yamato kept talking, delving into stuff that Izuku didn't understand at all. The boy simply walked up the stairs and into the apartment. He had only been here once before, when Yamato had called him about studying for the exams. Now, he had no idea what the man was going to show him, but he definitely wasn't going to fall for the bucket over the door prank again. It was horrible when the last one had paint in it and ruined his favorite dress shirt t-shirt. The apartment was quiet. Izuku knew that Yamato lived alone and tried to keep people away from his home. "Oh, you're the kid? Izuku, right?" So when he heard the voice, Izuku basically jumped and hit the ceiling. He was lucky that Yamato stopped him from hitting the floor, but he frowned when the man cackled. "I see you've met Ichika." "Yamato, why did you drag me here? Who is that? Why is there a bubbling pot on your stove?" Izuku's brain ran wild with thoughts and concerns. Yamato just grabbed a chair and sat the boy down. Ichika grabbed the other chair and pulled it up. The two looked between each other before Yamato cleared his throat and pushed Ion's display. The hologram AI appeared and started to generate various image boxes, things Izuku and Ichika had never seen before. "Master Midoriya, Mistress Tujo, please assign your ocular organs the task of viewing this presentation." The AI then swept its hand right and a large image was generated. It was a high-definition screen of what appeared to be a web of stars. To begin, let's discuss alternate dimensi dash. Yamato pressed on the display panel. Aion stopped before changing to a different tone. "Let's discuss our core issue that Yamato and I have discovered. Yamato came to your universe 300-odd years ago. Ms. Tujo appeared last night. Usually, from Dr. Vargas' detailed notes, universal travel is extremely regulated, and your universe is known as a nexus universe, a point in the multiverse that serves as the creation ground for new universes." Izuku tried to follow along. He knew that Yamato had jumped into his world, yeah. But to think that the theory of multiple universes was true, that was a little complicated to process. Ion changed the image to showcase various Earths. One had dinosaurs, the other had demons and angels. It was really a mixed bag. What you may not know about the multiverse is that it exists in a state of suspended entropy. Izuku's eyebrow raised and Yamato sighed. What tall, bright, and glowy means is that instead of expanding or contracting, something is keeping the universes at the Goldilocks point. Not too big, not too small. The AI nodded. A crude but astute comparison from the monkey. Yamato glared. This is strange, however. According to old Arcturian science logs, every universe has a set lifespan that must conclude before a new one can exist. Otherwise, the corruption could spread like in the previous incarnations. The boy and Ichika felt a little strange. Ion continued to walk around, pointing out various universes as Yamato contemplated a bit. Izuku's eye twitched at the word Arcturian. An image of an old man flashed in his head. "Why, what's the corruption?" Izuku asked. Ichika thanked him as it was what she was going to ask next. Yamato gained a serious face. His eye was shadowed by his hair. Ion's body glowed a deep red before reverting to the bright blue. Outside of the universe exists the infinite expanse known to all jumpers as the Abyss. It holds the parasitic hive mind known as the corruption. Light does not exist in the Abyss, as there seems to be a consciousness deep in the expanse that snuffs all forms of existence. Yamato clutched his head. Something about what the AI was saying had caused a headache. His missing eye ached as well. A dull throbbing pain radiating outward. The corruption seeks to consume the light found within stars, people, planets. It doesn't matter. Non-existence is its desire. From what Dr. Vargas logs say, corruption-infested individuals claim the sentience of the void suffers pain from the existence of all things. Ichika raised her hand. She was very curious about this. "What's the point in telling us this? I mean, there's none of that here, right?" The AI did not respond. Yamato's headache had increased 1,000-fold. He looked up and Izuku saw that his eye was golden again. Essence was causing some kind of reactions to the information. He raised his hand and snapped. Izuku and Ichika were somewhere tropical. It was raining heavily. They didn't feel the rain hit their bodies as they walked, trying to find something. It was then they noticed Yamato wasn't with them. They panicked but still could not find him. Kaboom! An explosion rocked the jungle. They ran to find what had caused the explosion. There they found Yamato with his broken sword clashing against a hulking monster. Its fist slammed into the blade, cutting into its flesh. A sizzle was heard as the monster screamed in pain. Suddenly, its mouth opened larger than ever, and a huge amount of black, viscous liquid flowed out towards Yamato. The swordsman slashed the liquid and it seemed like it was reduced to atoms. Displaying medical chart. Warning: corruption detected in environment. The AI chimed out unhelpfully. Yamato looked concerned. Here, but I thought you said that this corruption stuff couldn't access a Nexus universe. The AI did not immediately respond. Yamato proceeded to smack the VTZ-62 before remembering that it had artificial pain receptors. For the corruption to access a Nexus universe, Apartment 4 p.m., one of the progenitors would need to be present. When finished once they were out of the vision, Izuku looked bewildered at what had just occurred. Did he just enter Yamato's mind?
No.
I shared a fractured memory with you. Thanks to the nanomachines in your bloodstream, I can use the neural link in my head to share my sight, hearing, and thoughts. ION was designed to allow ease of communication with outsiders and collect data for Dr. Vargas. Yamato answered to the unasked question. The two stared at each other. Ichika had taken to throwing up in a trash can nearby. Memory syncing was very nauseating for people who had amnesia. Unfortunately, she was very unlucky. Yamato. What are the progenitors? An old myth from nearly 200 years ago. Yamato sighed as he sat on the mattress. He pulled out an old book labeled To Understand Reality by Henry M. Markusowitz. In the beginning, League of Villains Lair 12:13 a.m. So, you guys are? Asked Tamura Shigaraki. The Decay user had woken up and planned to play through Zelda Ocarina of Time but had forgotten his controller in the lair's common room. Walking in, he saw 4 people sat around a table with Kurogiri polishing a glass nearby. Yutaro Kimisuya, that's Azrael Mortem, Telecris Garnet, and Porta Avantes. We're gonna be helping your boss in exchange for my brother's corpse. If you have any more questions, ask away. Our organization is about answering questions. Yutaro responded with a happy smile. It was unnerving as his face was still covered in the black veins. The skin was gray, resembling a corpse's skin, but it was warm to the touch. Tamura gazed at the 4. Azrael had shifted the form of Richard Novak to the point he needed to wear a custom suit of armor. It was a medieval knight set that had a purple plume at the top. You couldn't see his face, but the helmet allowed the glowing purple eyes to peer through. Telecris looked like one of those old Yakuza members. A black suit with a white shirt. The collar was open, but the skin was still gray, making it unseemly. He constantly wore a shit-eating grin as he smoked a cigar. Small flakes of blood stained his fancy Oxford shoes. Porta was the only female member of the cast. She had a similar ensemble to Telecris but chose a red dress over a black suit. Her face had a strange beauty about it, but her eyes had a killer desire about them. "Why are you helping us?" Tamura asked with confusion. He trusted Sensei, that much was true. But these oddballs looked like actual corpses that crawled out of the ground. Yutaro sighed. He didn't want to explain the entire story of how they were on a mission to alter the course of reality itself. That, or his fascination with turning his brother into a fellow corrupted autarch. No, instead he'd lie just to get the folks to like them. He smirked. Well, your boss hates Yamato. I want him dead. You guys want to rule the world? We want you to rule the world. Humanity is flawed. Life and death cause fear. With our help, you could abolish that entirely. What? Yutaro accepted a glass of wine from Kurogiri. He hadn't lost his taste for regal drinks. Where we come from, our world, we have these artifacts that project energy across the planet and basically prevent death. He lied, those artifacts didn't necessarily prevent death. More like it opened a doorway into the beyond. With Erebus power, human souls would be converted into the corrupt. They would live on forever, able to express and explore their true desires, right? Why would we want this? Think about it. Nobody could oppose you. You'd hold the world at gunpoint. Yutaro proudly stated with glee. He held his wine glass up and the liquid shook. You'd be the greatest villains alive. Secretly, All for One was listening in. He was very intrigued. Perhaps he could get unique quirks if he allowed these four to serve him. Perhaps he could reclaim his brother's quirk with the power they offered. The man chuckled. This was truly becoming the deal of the century. That's cool and all. But what's the price for this immortality you offer? Tamura had heard a lot of bullshit in his life. But nothing like this ever came easily. Simple, you let us work. The things we do cannot be influenced by the League. If you do, our future that our Lord Emperor Takuya had foreseen will not come to pass. It's very important as that will allow your sensei to reclaim what was lost. Tamura contemplated this offer. Yutaro extended his hand. It looked gross and cold. Shigaraki definitely didn't want to touch it. He also deigned this to be a complete lie. There was no way they'd offer such power and rewards without a demand. No, he was going to put this to the test. He reached out and grabbed the hand with all 5 fingers. Yutaro felt himself decaying. He simply smiled. A test of our honesty, huh? All right, and then he turned to dust. Shigaraki waited a second before shouting, "Wow! Some immortality!" Then, the dust started to coalesce. It took the shape of Yutaro before solidifying. When he had reformed fully, Yutaro stretched his shoulders before facing Tamura with a smile. "Behold, I am immortal." Tamura proceeded to faint. That's it for today, guys. I will stop here. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you do, please leave a like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget check out the author of this story and leave a kudos. Take care, thanks for watching.